Oceans are our lifeblood. Covering 71% of the planet, they produce more than half the oxygen in the atmosphere. But now, the oceans are becoming a danger to us. Sea levels worldwide have been rising as a result of climate change. A lot is at stake, especially for the Pacific nation of Tuvalu. If the ocean continues to rise, it's at risk of being completely submerged. Will Tuvalu be the first country to be wiped off the map by climate change? Our oceans are vast, spanning 2/3 of the planet and accounting for 97% of our water. But now, our seas have become monsters because of climate change.
As a storm chaser and adventurer, I've spent years traveling all over the world documenting the most extreme forces of nature. But now, I'm going after the bigger picture of climate change.
In the last 5 years, I've witnessed increasingly violent storms, flooding, and hurricanes that have devastated communities in Thailand, the Philippines, and the USA. More and more, I'm seeing that much of our extreme weather is directly connected to climate change. Scientists agree that oceans are getting hotter and higher, making them unpredictable and dangerous.
The last 12 months have brought some really bad news in terms of sea level rise. It's just rising fast. Now it's 3.2 millimetres a year. Places like Tuvalu and the Pacific Islands, the low-lying atoll countries, are in real trouble. I mean, they will go under the sea. At some point this century, they'll go underwater.
I'm on my way to the tiny island nation of Tuvalu to investigate this firsthand. Located in the Pacific Ocean, midway between Australia and Hawaii, Tuvalu is a cluster of 9 islands. My arrival here in Tuvalu is ominous. There's torrential rain and the whole area is flooded.
This is the wet season, and we're in an area that's a South Pacific convergent zone where you've got different wind currents coming together, which then go up, creating rain and thunderstorms and tremendous amounts of flooding, it seems.
With only 10 square miles of dry land, Tuvalu is one of the smallest countries in the world. An average elevation of 6 feet makes Tuvalu extremely vulnerable to storms and sea level rise. The rains are incredible. All over the island, people are struggling to keep their homes dry.
Usually when this place floods out, it's from the sea, which is about 30 yards that way. Today, torrential thunderstorms, freshwater flooding. This island can't catch a break.
I meet with local meteorologist Tuwala Katea.
So it's been a busy 24 hours for you. You've never seen this much rain in 24 hours.
And we measure around 47 millimeter in one day.
That sounds like something you'd get on a mountainside in a cyclone.
That's history. And it's not linked to any tropical cyclone or what. I mean, it's just a rain band, a convection zone, really active, right on top of Tuvalu.
Just perfectly aligned right on top of the island for hours and hours and hours.
Tuvalu experiences seasonally high tides that the locals call king tides. But in the last few years, these tides have been changing.
We call it king tides. That's the normal high tide. The normal high tide, but it's higher than normal.
If the king tide was yesterday, combined with the storm and the flooding, and maybe a little bit of surge from the storm, that would be catastrophic.
Yes, of course. Because of our elevation is really low, so low-lying places and coastal areas get inundated and eroded.
It's not just you that's being affected, it's everyone else. It just so happens that your island is very low.
Yes.
So it's going to be seen here first.
We are the front line.
Tuvalu has few natural defenses against these high tides.
One thing the locals have done is to try and help prevent the king tides by putting these barrels filled with concrete. Of course, not really working so well here. A few of them have been knocked down during a storm. The concept seems sound, but the implementation, I don't know.
The island can barely cope with tropical downpours, let alone more storms. This one has finally passed, but the damage on the island is long-lasting.
Yesterday there was some torrential rain like I haven't seen in a long, long time anywhere. And some of the houses here actually flooded out by that. It's not just seawater they have to worry about here, it's rainwater as well.
So this place got totally flooded out yesterday.
Yeah, starting at 8 o'clock last night, the water started coming in and the family was totally sleeping. They didn't know what was happening till the neighbors called out. So around about 8, the water was all over here, going inside. It was flooded everywhere.
Let's take a look. Wow. Everything is up on tables.
This is the first time that they have experienced this and have been evacuated. They just put up everything that are useful for the family, like the refrigerators and everything are put up high.
Where did they end up going?
They went up to the Tuvalu Red Cross.
Like many of the houses in Tuvalu, this house is located only 160 feet from the shore.
So could you imagine, with 5,000 or so people on this island, a major catastrophe?
If we have a 2 meters high king tide, it will just destroy us all.
The global sea level has been rising at a rate of 0.14 inches per year since the early 1990s, roughly twice the average speed of the preceding 80 years. It's a dangerous scenario. In the last century, the planet's temperature has risen at an alarming rate. Scientists have shown that human activities are driving temperatures up with our reliance on fossil fuels that emit greenhouse gases. As those gases trap more energy from the sun, oceans absorb more heat and expand. Climate scientists predict global temperatures will increase by 2 to 11 degrees Fahrenheit by the end of the century. Higher temperatures are also leading to increased melting of glaciers and polar ice caps, resulting in greater runoffs into the ocean and increasing sea levels. I asked climate scientist Elizabeth Holland more about the data.
We looked at solar radiation, we looked at rising sea level, we looked at the temperature of the oceans, we looked at the temperature of the atmosphere, we looked at the temperature of the land. Warming is unequivocal. We've been able to say more and more strongly that humans are causing the warming.
As ocean surface temperatures heat up, scientists predict an increase in the number of intense storms. The islands of Tuvalu are so low-lying and small, only 400 yards at the widest point, that they could easily be submerged.
This is basically it. I'm surrounded by ocean on 3 sides of me with just a tiny spit of land connecting me to the island. Probably the most vulnerable point on one of the most vulnerable islands.
You've got the lagoon side over here and the ocean side here. It's all converging on this one tiny spit. One thing that scientists are certainly in agreement about is that a lot of the heat that's trapped by greenhouse gases is getting absorbed by the oceans.
Let's see how warm the ocean is today.
Okay, so just over 80 degrees. As the water heats up, it will expand, and that actually contributes to global sea level rise. But that 80-degree point, that's sort of the threshold for tropical cyclone formation. You need water of at least that warm, and we've certainly got it here. Such a low-lying island is really at risk for not only sea level rise, but the torrential storm surge flooding that you can get during tropical cyclone season. I tell you, I wouldn't want to be standing right here during one.
Increased sea temperatures can have devastating consequences across the globe. Rising oceans are one of the deadliest results of climate change.
Warm water is the fuel for hurricanes, typhoons, tropical cyclones. And the warmer the seawater, the more we're going to see of these storms, and particularly the strength of these storms. A low-lying island like Tuvalu is particularly at risk. Today, we've got just a regular stormy day, and already this wind-driven surge is causing tremendous waves to crash much higher than the regular high tide. So to be on this island during a cyclone, it would totally swamp the island, and they do get cyclones here.
Across the globe, we're already witnessing increasingly violent storms.
But what we can now say with absolute clarity is that climate change is a very strong influence on these extreme weather events, and in some cases, the strongest influence.
It's not just low-lying islands that are vulnerable to hurricanes. New York City, which is only 33 feet above sea level, was brought to a standstill by Hurricane Sandy. I was in New York for Sandy, and even though I've been an active storm chaser for over 15 years, it was one of the most intense storms I've ever experienced.
The storm surge during Sandy was 13 feet above normal. It was one of the most devastating and expensive natural disasters in U.S. history.
117 people were killed, and it cost the U.S. $65 billion.
It created an unprecedented surge for that part of the world.
51 square miles of the city were flooded. That's 17% of the city landmass. More than 440,000 New Yorkers were living in the areas that Sandy flooded. I watched the storm come in from Rockaway Beach.
I was able to go up onto the boardwalk, which was maybe 10 feet above the beach, and I knew that the place was going to be completely demolished. I could see the violent waves just churning away, and I knew that the winds were going to shift as the storm got further inland, and that's exactly what happened. We knew we had to get out of there, or else we wouldn't get out of there.
I drove to higher ground, but all around me, whole neighborhoods in Queens and Brooklyn were underwater.
Such a storm used to only happen about once every 100 years, but now we're seeing these devastating storms more and more often.
Only 1 year later, on the other side of the world in the Philippines, Typhoon Haiyan hit, killing over 6,000 people.
Typhoon Haiyan was probably the strongest storm to ever make landfall. It was a Category 5 typhoon that hit the city of Tacloban directly. The storm surge with that was completely devastating. It came in like a tsunami. The Philippines gets hit quite frequently. They're used to typhoons. They've never seen anything like this one. It was so devastating that it was almost beyond comprehension, the level of damage and destruction that was caused by this storm. And I think that as sea levels get warmer and higher, it's inevitable we're putting ourselves at greater risk to the wrath of these marine storms, whether it's a hurricane, a typhoon, a tropical cyclone. They're all feeding off of this warm ocean water. And the sea surface temperatures have just been going up and up and up. It's not a matter of if, but when a major coastal city like Miami or Tampa gets hit by a major hurricane.
The danger on Tuvalu isn't just from these massive storms. There's also a serious threat from below. I've come to Tuvalu in the South Pacific to witness firsthand the effects of climate change.
For a little bit of perspective, about 80% of the island is no more than 4 feet above sea level. The highest point being about 15 feet, and about 40% of the population lives within 100 yards of the ocean. If there's any place in the world that is at the mercy of the sea, it's this place right here.
The rising seas are also forcing farmers to abandon their crops. Salt water from higher tides is soaking through the ground, contaminating the underground source of fresh water and destroying crops. Indigenous food, such as pulaka and coconut, are being destroyed. Reverend Tafui Lusama is deeply concerned with the impact of rising sea levels.
If salt water intrudes into it, it kills all our traditional plants. Land and the sea are the sources which sustain our livelihood daily. You lose your land, you lose your life.
Tonight, I'm joining the Tira Taula family for a traditional home-cooked meal. But foods like this are becoming harder to harvest.
This is a steamed fish. Definitely very hot. Red fruit and banana with talolo, cooked with talolo.
Local foods may soon be a thing of the past.
What a treat to enjoy some South Pacific hospitality. Going into someone's home, having a home-cooked meal. It's the best.
Our people can no longer depend on our traditional way of life, so we are left with no option but to turn into a market-based lifestyle.
With traditional crops being threatened by rising oceans, locals are relying on more processed foods.
With all of these changes that have been going on, it's become more and more difficult for the farmers here to grow some of the traditional food crops. And especially since World War II, they've become quite dependent on foreign-made processed food, and doesn't really help them in their struggle for food security, which is becoming a big issue here in Tuvalu.
The country now imports 80% of its food, which is costly to the islanders.
We're Pacific Islanders. We have a lot of ties to our land, our ocean. Our identity is very much built around how we relate to our land, how we relate to our ocean, and all of that is threatened, right?
People have lived in Tuvalu for 2,000 years, but some islanders are now leaving, scared that climate change and rising sea levels will make life on the island nearly impossible.
Our identity as a people will disappear, will die out. If I am relocated because of climate change and my country has gone down, where do I belong? I have no roots.
Tuvalu is not responsible for the catastrophe it's facing. It's no surprise the largest emitters of man-made greenhouse gases are the world's largest countries: China, United States, the EU, and India.
Here in the islands, we contribute the least to greenhouse gas emissions, yet we're the most affected.
Tuvalu, the fourth smallest country in the world, has almost no carbon emissions, but they're at the front line.
As those in the developed world drive their cars and turn up their heat or decide to build one more coal-fired power plant, it is the Tuvalus of the world that will go underwater because of those choices.
Environmental activists are taking up the cause, encouraging the people of the Pacific Islands to fight for changes on a local and global scale. In 2014, they took their fight to Australia and blocked the largest coal port with canoes to make their voices heard.
Right now, that's the message that we want to get out there. Climate change is real, we are living with it, and sooner or later the world needs to change if we don't start demanding that the world transitions to more renewable sources of energy.
There's no plan B.
There's no plan B, there's no planet B.
But Tuvalu is fighting back. In an effort to hold on to their island, the locals have raised money from an unlikely source.
Each country has its own internet suffix. .de for Germany, .au for Australia, .ca for Canada. Well, here in Tuvalu, they've got .tv. And .tv has become so popular, especially amongst people in the television world, that it has quite an appeal.
The money raised by selling the suffix goes into repairing roads, improving barriers, and planting mangrove trees to fight against coastal erosion.
If worse comes to worst and Tuvalu disappears under the waves, that suffix will still exist, creating what could possibly be the world's first virtual country existing only in cyberspace.
While Tuvalu is disappearing, it's far from alone in its coastal erosion.
The problem is not confined to Tuvalu. It's not peculiar to Tuvalu only. It's a global problem.
The Maldives are also under threat. A unique archipelago made up of 2,000 islands could almost disappear into the sea by the end of the century if nothing is done to curb global warming. It's not just low-lying island communities that are at risk. With predictions that sea levels could rise by up to 6 feet over the next century, South Florida will be badly affected. A 3-foot rise would take away a third of the land, and a 6-foot rise would submerge half the area. The condos that line Miami's waterfront would disappear.
What do you think is the biggest misconception
about climate change in general?
The biggest misconception is that because it's a slow process, we can wait to take action. Because climate change is a very slow process, but we're at that tipping point. We need to take action today.
The people of Tuvalu are desperate for the rest of the world to sit up and pay attention. What does the world need to know about Tuvalu?
I think it's very important that that we are part of the world. And I think that as a Tuvaluan, despite how small we are, we need to speak out that we do exist and we are parts of who you are, whether you are in Canada or in America. We are all part, we are the people of this world, and we need to be together and work together.
Just a month after I left Tuvalu, Cyclone Pam tore through the neighboring Pacific islands of Vanuatu, causing extensive damage. It also affected Tuvalu, forcing it to declare a state of emergency. This cyclone is a painful reminder that action must be taken. Global temperatures cannot be allowed to rise another 2 degrees. If countries around the world can find a way to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, then Tuvalu and other countries in danger will have a fighting chance at survival. 100 years ago, 3 men died on the trip we're about to take. We're retracing a 100-year-old expedition on one of the world's most dangerous rivers.
Let's get ready to bolt.
The Amazon jungle was once a mighty foe for explorers. But has logging and climate change made it any less wild? I've explored many corners of this earth, but none are more endangered and more important to the health of our planet than the Amazon rainforest. I'm about to follow in the footsteps of a legendary US president to find out how serious the problem is. I'll have some company on this adventure. My friend, travel writer Kristen Sarah will document this journey on her blog.
The smaller the plane,
The bigger the adventure. So we're on our way to a remote landing strip deep in the Amazon jungle, a place on the Rio Roosevelt, which is a river that was named after Teddy Roosevelt himself.
It was 1914, 3 years after his second term as president, when he embarked on an expedition to explore an uncharted river deep in the Amazon jungle. It was a trip that very nearly killed him. They faced raging rapids, wild animals, they lost boats, supplies, they went hungry. 3 members of his expedition didn't make it out alive. What better way of gauging the mood of the area than by retracing the most dangerous part of that expedition to see this untamed land for myself?
It's truly amazing just to see how big the jungle is from this point of view. Not only is it the largest rainforest in the world, it is also known as the lungs of the world because it produces 20% of the world's oxygen.
The Amazon is just so incredibly vast. There's plenty of spots that we've flown over that have been completely clear-cut.
In the last 20 years, it's lost over 295,000 square miles of forest. That's as big as 2 Germanys. Because of all that logging and the use of the slash and burn method, the downed trees are releasing the carbon dioxide they've absorbed back into the atmosphere, which results in more global warming.
All right, we made it.
Deforestation is far from the only threat to the region. Huge parts of it are drying up because of drought. That's a direct result of climate change. The forest isn't producing the water vapor, which forms the clouds that put the rain in the rainforest.
All right, this is so dense.
We're making our way to a point in the river where Roosevelt and his men started the hardest part of their expedition, It was a gutsy journey. We're going to duplicate part of it to find out how climate change has altered this once wild jungle.
So what do you do if you're the President of the United States? You've already served 2 terms. You tried to go back for a 3rd, was unsuccessful. Do you retire? Just fade away? Not if you're Roosevelt.
He came down to the Amazon and did a kick-ass expedition in one of the wildest places on Earth. I mean, that guy was the most badass president of all time. He had a pet badger. He carried a gun in the White House. He got shot in the chest in an assassination attempt and got on stage and gave a 90-minute speech. Complete badass. In Roosevelt's day, the environment was so hostile that he lost a few boats along the way. It would be one of the thrills of my lifetime to actually find a boat from that remarkable expedition.
Our location is right here. The Rio Roosevelt flows to the north.
It's 400 miles long, with many sections that are completely impassable. We know boats were lost while navigating the rapids, so we're going to concentrate our search at a bend in the river where a lost boat would likely wash up. Torrential downpours are on the horizon as rainy season gets underway. We have no time to lose.
The power of these rapids is incredible. That's where Roosevelt lost one of his men.
It doesn't take much to get swept into the rapids, which is exactly what happened to one of Roosevelt's crew members. His body was never even found.
Oh, this is just way too dangerous.
Yeah,
We're just gonna get smashed to bits. I don't want to be searching for your boat, and I don't want you searching for my boat.
I don't want to be searching for your body either.
Motorboats only go so far here. That's why we're going to portage past the rapids, then kayak the next leg of the river. The rapids are so powerful, I can actually feel the ground shaking.
1, 2, 3.
Tough slogging, and our kayak only weighs 50 pounds. Roosevelt's boats weighed 800.
Look at this.
Wow.
That is crazy. Just looking at these rapids, absolutely wicked, strong, very dangerous. Scares the hell out of me. It's not the kind of place you want to fall in. So much power.
It just makes sense to portage around this. For us, yeah, it's tough, but for the guys years ago, this would have been a multi-day effort. Cutting down trees, using logs as rollers. They had it hard, really hard.
I just lost my footing there for a second. When you're along the water, especially with these rocks, it's really easy to get trapped in here, kind of like I am right now. This is not serious, but when Roosevelt was here, he actually got his leg smashed between rocks and a canoe. That wound plagued him for the entire expedition, and some even think it contributed to his death. There we go.
Ready to pop it in?
Yeah. There are innumerable rapids down this river. Sometimes you have to portage, carry your boats across land. Sometimes you can put the boat in the water and line it down by rope. This is the easier way to do it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We'll just haul it up here.
All right.
Perfect.
Nice parallel park.
We're past the worst of it, so let's see if we can do the next section the way Roosevelt did, paddling down the raging river.
There's the rock straight ahead.
Left, left, left. There we go.
Take that, Roosevelt.
We just got our first taste of what Roosevelt was up against. Luckily, Kristen recovers quickly.
Roosevelt, hurt me.
You got too cocky.
Back on track. Only 2 more miles to go and we can start searching the bend in the river. There's a fishing lodge up there where we can get back into motorboats and make some real progress. We've done our research and we've narrowed down the location.
That way.
We're on our way to the bend where the current could have carried one of Roosevelt's boats. A depth finder and an underwater camera are part of our search arsenal.
We are going to put this underwater metal detector to work.
I'm hoping it'll detect any of the boat's iron nails or fittings.
Sometimes, though, the best way to search in the water is to get right in.
Can you pass me the metal detector?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just waiting for that sound.
Of course, there are all kinds of things living in the water here.
Electric eels, flesh-eating piranhas, and the tiny, blood-sucking candiru fish. It's been known to actually swim up your urethra if you pee in the water.
Got anything?
Not yet.
Want to know a little secret? I'm peeing right now. Badass.
I mean, that's your choice. I'm not doing it.
I survived.
For now. No luck quite yet. Back in the boat. That's how you do it.
Let's move the search a little further north. In Roosevelt's day, he would have encountered a lot of wildlife. The biggest is the local crocodilian species, the black caiman.
That's a big one.
And wouldn't you know it, he's right where we want to search.
Black caiman are the apex predator of the Amazon. An adult caiman really has nothing to fear out here except for humans.
It's got good reason to fear us. Just 50 years ago, this king of the river was hunted almost to extinction. Over the last 100 years, its population has decreased by 99%, all for its high-quality skin, which produces shiny black leather. Caimans feed on fish, like piranha and catfish, and mammals, like the capybara, the largest rodent in the world. As caiman numbers decline, their prey thrives. The growing number of capybaras are destroying vegetation and crops. Hunting caimans is now illegal, and their population is slowly recovering. So, it's encouraging to come across a fully grown caiman out here.
Getting a little closer, so he's gonna feel trapped. We should back up.
These animals can't seem to catch a break, though. Their new enemy is drought. North of here, caiman populations are down again as water levels drop. I'd love to get a better look at this guy. At the same time, let's lure him away from our search site by offering him some lunch. Downriver. There's a big caiman right where we want to conduct the search for Roosevelt's long-lost boat. So, we're trying to lure him away. It takes a few hours to convince the caiman to clear out, and now we're losing daylight. We'll set up camp here for the night, but first, I want to install our stealth cams to get a sense of the state of the wildlife here.
This spot looks pretty good. Check this out. There's all kinds of tracks and activity. We have a hoof print here. Might have been a deer.
Look, green banded moss. So beautiful.
The Amazon basin contains so much biodiversity that 10% of all of the Earth's species are found here.
There are some amazing animals I'd love to catch sight of, especially one of the world's rarest big cats, the jaguar.
Any warm-blooded creature that comes by here will get picked up by the infrared sensor. All right, wildlife, anytime.
Show us something.
This spot here is totally flat enough. I'll stick up my tent right here. Here you go. Just one little fire.
It's about 20 after 5 in the morning. I'm gonna go check on our cameras. Some people say it's insane to camp out here because of the threat of jaguars. They can hide and ambush you very, very quickly. They have been known to kill people. Needless to say, I'll make this a quick check. Okay, we've got a brocket deer and a Brazilian tapir. Both prey for the jaguar. But so far, no jaguar. They need huge amounts of territory to thrive, so they've been hit hard by habitat loss. There are now 80% fewer jaguars than when Roosevelt was here.
Whoa! George, come check this out. Those like jaguar paw prints.
Holy smokes, those are huge.
That's incredible.
Must have come down to take a drink. You see it stepped and then dragged its claws.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not the only wildlife this beach has to offer this morning. These weaver birds make the most intricate nests.
Hello, Mr. Tarantula.
So how is climate change going to potentially affect the Amazon jungle? Well, it's hard to say, but a 2009 study suggested that as little as a 3-degree rise in temperature could destroy up to 75% of the rainforest.
And that's combined with deforestation, which not only destroys the area being logged, it also increases soil erosion and degrades rivers. Bad for the rainforest and bad for the wildlife that lives in it. Our quest continues. Based on Roosevelt's notes, we've searched up and down this bend. One of the only places left is off this beach. I'm using a glass-bottomed bucket. Simple, but effective.
Nothing yet.
Do you know how deep it is here? Do you have the depth sounder?
"10 feet.
Our research tells us we're close, but there's no sign of it in the river. But what about land that was underwater 100 years ago? This sandbar is the only place left to look.
Because the water level is so incredibly low right now, it could be exposed maybe just under a few feet of sand. Time to pull out some shovels and start digging.
Oh. Right here.
There's definitely something buried here. Here come the rain clouds. This is exactly what we feared. It could rain for days, and this sandbar will be submerged again. We've got to keep digging. It doesn't look like this rain is going to let up. It's discouraging to get this far and think I won't even have the chance to find the trophy I'm looking for. The legendary Theodore Roosevelt's lost boat. We're calling it a day and hoping nature is on our side tomorrow. We've looked high and low around the rapids and found nothing. The only reasonable place left to search is the sandbar. The metal detector was pinging, so I feel good about our chances here. I recruit some locals to help.
We're gonna be here digging forever. Yeah. Something? Something wood? Hey!
Oh, yeah.
We must have dug a dozen different holes on this beach. And finally, we've come across
It looks like a boat.
what looks like a boat. So it looks really, really promising.
Really big.
Yeah, it's
but
definitely
it
a
seems
boat.
like it's really big.
It's definitely a boat. This really looks like a dugout canoe.
Yeah.
The boats on the Roosevelt expedition were made from a single tree trunk, split in half and hollowed out. They measured about 10 feet long.
Oh, lightheaded. I think we might have found Jimmy Hoffa and Amelia Earhart and D.B. Cooper. We've got most of this boat excavated. Let's see if we can at least give it a budge. Ah!
Wow.
Awesome. The good news and the bad news. The good news is we found a boat against all odds. The bad news is this boat is much too new. It's been painted. There's no way they would have painted their boats. This is an old fishing boat that got washed up here during the rainy season. Yeah, we might as well pull it out of here. 1, 2, 3. We have a boat. Well, this may not have been the boat we were looking for, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's here along the river where he was. Looks like a dugout canoe, but not the right vintage.
And the boat, Roosevelt's boat, is still out there.
We've searched the entire bend. Now, the wet season is approaching and river levels are rising. If we want to find Roosevelt's boat, it'll have to wait another year. Of all the American presidents, Theodore Roosevelt was the most passionate about saving the environment. During his presidency, he protected over 230 million acres of public land, including 150 national forests and 5 national parks. So, is the Amazon tamer than in Roosevelt's day? It's hard to say. We faced many of the same challenges he did 100 years ago. What's different is today the rainforest is suffering the effects of human activity through deforestation and climate change. Great strides have been made to reverse the damage, but it'll take a lot more effort to make sure this remains one of the wildest places on Earth. At any given time, there are dozens of volcanoes erupting on Earth. But reports coming from the remote island of Fogo off the coast of Africa are especially alarming. A river of molten lava is advancing on one of its villages. How far will it go? The answer could be the difference between life and death for its residents. I know firsthand how volcanoes behave. I've rappelled deep into exploding fiery craters and explored, up close, many of the world's most active volcanoes. To understand what's happening in Cabo Verde, I have to go and see it for myself. Wow! I'm on my way to Cabo Verde, cluster of 10 volcanic islands off the coast of West Africa. Santiago is the largest of the islands. From there, I'll travel to the island of Fogo, where its namesake volcano is erupting furiously. The last eruption on Fogo happened in 1995. 1,300 people were forced to flee their homes in the middle of the night as lava flowed through their houses and blocked the only road access to the town of Portela. Will the damage be as severe this time? Reports suggest it might actually be worse. Once in Santiago, I meet up with local guide Simon Levy to get up to speed on what's happened since the volcano started erupting just 1 week ago.
What are they saying about the situation?
The situation is bigger than the last eruption in 1995.
And this eruption could end tomorrow, or it could go for months.
The people there and here also is all in panic, so they don't know what will happen. So that's the problem.
Wow, there is some concern that this whole area will be filled.
Yes, because Shan das Caldeiras, the volcano is higher. So all the small village around, down, so the lava
just goes to the lowest points and fills up.
I need to get up there for myself and see where this lava is going. and provide my assessment to emergency officials. With the Fogo airport closed, I have to travel by ferry.
Sorry. Squeeze on through.
And I'm not the only one. Emergency aid workers are also making their way to the island.
Looks like we're starting to line up now. The people that are evacuating from Fogo are just getting off of the ferry now, and hopefully soon, within the hour, I'll be on the boat and on my way. Hopefully.
It's a 4-hour ferry ride from Santiago to Fogo. Our trek to the volcano starts in São Felipe, the island's main city. From here, we'll need to drive up and into the volcano's caldera, the lowlands surrounding the volcano's peak, where the village of Portela is located. So far, the lava has reached the border of the town, steamrolling entire buildings as it moves forward.
I've run into Patrick Barois. He's from France. He's a very, very experienced volcanophile, been all over the world. He was here in 1995 for the big eruption there, and you've written 5 books about volcanoes.
Yes,
so what was it like here during 1995?
There is big lava flow, big explosion, big lava fountain, but this eruption is not the same, because this eruption is more dramatical, because the lava flow now has destroyed the ground, the villages. It's a problem to build a house in this kind of volcano, because it is the house of the volcanoes, and the volcano decide himself what to do.
Right. People that build in there, they're basically building on the volcano's land, the volcano's property, and they're living on borrowed time by building it there.
By reaching the volcano, I'm hoping to see the lava flow's direction and get some insight as to whether or not it'll flow past Portela and into the village of Banguera. It doesn't take long to hit roadblock number 1.
All the other alternative roads to go inside, it's completely destroyed. So that's the reason they stopped, because Portela village is completely covered with the lavas at the moment.
This is one of the villages where the people who've been evacuating from basically the destroyed towns have been setting up shop. Things are getting a little heated here. There are tents, there's food, there's water, but it's crowded. There's only one toilet for the whole facility, so some of the people are not too pleased.
The people who live here feel they're not being listened to and their needs are being ignored. They're extremely vulnerable, forced to live in the shadow of a volcano in order to take advantage of the rich soil this dangerous corner of the Earth offers. Part of Portela is already hit. Hopefully, the lava will stop before more damage is done.
So let's go to say
Well, let's get up to, of course, where we can.
How many lives are in danger? I've got to keep moving if I'm going to find out.
Visibility is so bad, you can't see anything.
As the volcano is erupting, it's releasing carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. While these emissions don't have a huge impact on climate change, the combination of these gases can be lethal for people, animals, and vegetation. As we head towards Portela, we drive through barren land that until recently was thriving with agriculture, an important part of Fogo's economy. Despite the dangers of growing in close proximity to the volcano, more and more people are settling here, because there's nowhere else for them to scratch out a living on the island.
All right.
I finally come face to face with what I've come here to see, the river of lava.
So this is the brand new lava flow. It's probably a couple of days old. It's not hot. It's warm. The sky is starting to clear up a little bit, so I'm kind of enthusiastic about that because I can hear the vent. The lava is erupting right now. Well, the peak of the volcano is there, above the cloud, but this eruption was not at the summit. This eruption was actually down a fissure eruption along the flanks on the side.
Volcanic fissure eruptions occur in cracks or fractures along the side of a volcano, rather than through the main cone or vent.
It's definitely still active. It's hard to hear, but it's definitely going on just behind those clouds.
Think of this lava flow as a snake.
Anything?
The tail is 1.5 miles behind us at the base of the volcano. If this is the body, where's the head? We need to get to the very front of this lava flow. Reports suggest it's in Portela.
Let's go.
But who knows what we'll find when we get there.
Fresh lava, let's go.
Lava's moving.
It's moving. That's
each 1 hour.
Let's do it.
Three days ago, you could keep driving right to Portela, but unfortunately for us, this fast-moving river of lava passed through, leaving a wall of solid rock in its wake.
This used to be the road to the town of Portela, but for some reason, they can't use it anymore. Literally, the end of the road. A construction crew is further up the hill trying to build a new road so the town has access again, but it's going to take some time.
Giving up and turning around isn't an option. So we abandon our vehicle and hike the rest of the way. I need to get to the front of Fogo's lava flow for a sense of where it's going next.
We had to abandon the car because this road is not safe anymore to take a car onto because it could disappear very, very quickly.
Right now, we're at the base of the volcano. The molten lava is flowing from its side and traveling right into town. It's a huge threat to everyone who lives there.
I'm actually at the point where this lava flow is actually on top of the old lava flow from 1995. So you've got stacked flows together. And there's pieces tumbling down here. This whole thing is moving.
When a volcano erupts, all that lava, along with ash, rock fragments, and gases, are ejected into the atmosphere. While the gases will eventually dissipate, the volcanic material will settle and cool on the ground. Eventually, that material will break down and become young, fertile soil, containing many of the same elements found in commercial fertilizers. This can take anywhere from a decade to 100 years. Climate is the single most important factor for soil development. Tropical climates, like Cabo Verde's, help speed up this process. The volcanic soil on Fogo is perfect for harvesting vegetables, coffee beans, and wine grapes. For farmers, the benefits outweigh the risks. Finally, we've made it to Portela, or what's left of it. Until a few days ago, this whole area was covered in vineyards, producing export-quality wine. But the eruption has completely buried the most lucrative vineyards. Now, all that's left is a field of lava and a few drops of wine.
So this is the last wine that was produced here. It's the very last batch. There will never be any more like this. Oh, that's very strong. That's good.
We knew the town had been hit, but nothing could have prepared us for this. And it's not close to being over.
It's almost unimaginable what's happening here. This unstoppable wall of hot rock is just steamrolling into the town of Portales. I'm up on a hill right now overlooking, and I got a really good view of how vast this lava flow is. And it just goes as far as the eye can see, and it's just pushing into the town. There is almost no chance for most of these buildings to survive.
Locals are trying to save as much as they can. They've removed doors, windows, furniture, and carried everything up the side of the hill where they pray the lava won't reach.
Ou seja, nesse momento ali, casadinha, já caçou já, mas completa.
So where was her house?
So the house is completely covered, and everything, all stuff inside. She didn't have time to take out.
The people of Portela have not only lost their homes, they've lost their livelihoods. It's absolutely devastating.
Hard to put into words. This unstoppable lava flow it's in town right now.
This is the head of the beast I've been chasing across the island. If I want to get close enough to analyze this lava, I need my heat-resistant suit. It can protect me from temperatures of up to 2,000 degrees.
Now, what this suit does is it protects me from the radiant heat. What it does not protect me from is the actual rocks, these avalanches of lava chunks. So the lava here is actually a little bit more fluid than in the other part of town. As soon as I touch my hammer to the lava, it just immediately bursts into flames. Even with the suit, that is unbearably hot. It's burning my ears. Ow! Ow!
I'm using an infrared thermometer. Lava can reach temperatures up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
I've gone off the scale.
This lava must be hotter than the 1,000 degrees that this thermometer can read.
Off the scale. Okay, that's useless.
Evacuation of these homes began as soon as the volcano first erupted.
Oh, wow. Oh, jeez. Holy smokes.
Less than a week ago, the family who lived here was forced to evacuate in the middle of the night, taking with them whatever they could carry.
The glass is broken. The door is hot. Wow, more glass coming through. Very, very soon, this wall is going to just completely come crashing in. I don't think this lock is going to hold it for much longer. It sounds like rain or hail outside, but it's actually rocks coming in. Wow. That was something.
I may have just avoided death by steamrolling hot lava. Even though the lava appears to be moving relatively slowly, it's actually moving at 100 feet an hour. It would take it under 3 hours to cross a football field. That's fast. In 4 days, the lava has destroyed just about everything in this town, and by the end of the week, another town will be in the lava's path.
To me, it blows my mind how we all live on this thin skin, this crust on top of the Earth. If you were to shrink the Earth down to the size of an apple, the crust that we live on would be about as thick as the skin on that apple. And everything else inside is basically this. Civilization exists because of geological permission, which is revocable at any time. I don't know how we do it. It's amazing.
It's the reason volcanoes are so closely monitored. Except poor countries don't always have the resources and latest technologies to observe them as carefully as they'd like to. This really is a world problem. While it's too late for Portela, other towns on the island are still at risk. So for now, my biggest concern is just how far this lava flow can go. And for that, I've got to get closer to the source. And I've just met a local who might be my ticket to the top.
It flies up about 600 feet and then it comes down, so it cools off on the way down. Yeah, but it's still enough instant. I mean, it goes like this. We thought the whole place was going.
How difficult is it to get there?
Man, 10 minutes.
So you can drive right up to a point and then walk for 10 minutes?
Yeah, I got my car right over here.
I love you.
There's tons of seismic activity.
Yeah.
This area is not stable. I mean, absolutely not. Just it's very, very, very quiet right now. But they do not know if it's going to blow or not. I'm trying to help these guys get rid of their wine, so I had a few glasses. I mean, they ain't going to be able to pump all of it up, so I'm going up there in a little while. It takes got about an hour walk back to the car.
Yeah.
But the twilight hour is the best. You'll see the smoke and the flames.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets dark, you can only see the
I mean, if we can follow you.
Sure, no problem.
So met up with this very odd dude whose name is Vince, and he says that he can get me up to the vent. So I'm gonna trust him and follow him right now and see if we can get up there. It's starting to get dark, so we should be able to see that real incandescence coming up from the volcano. So I don't know how this is gonna work out, but stay tuned, we'll see. Vince knows the roads of this island like the back of his hand. He usually leads fishing charters, but tonight, he's guiding us as close to the eruption as possible. Then, we'll have to hike the rest of the way. Hopefully, getting this close to the source will get me the answers I'm looking for.
Now that night has fallen, I can clearly see that there's almost continuous explosions going on the flank of the volcano. There's actually two very vigorous vents and a lava flow coming down the side. It's a little hard to see still, but that just means I have to get a bit closer.
All right, folks. Off-roading.
The really big lava flow, that's what's heading down into the towns. But higher up, the explosive part of the eruption, to me, it looks like there's too much lava for these explosions. So I think there's some lava tube or something below, further down the mountain, that's feeding these lava flows.
Lava tubes are formed when the top of lava flows harden and forms a roof above it. It acts like a tunnel and drains the lava from the volcano. This may mean the threat is greater than I thought, and many more communities could be at risk, starting with the neighboring town of Banguera.
Every time there's an explosion, I can feel the shock wave and the ground shaking.
This is what's called a Strombolian eruption, named after the active Stromboli volcano in Italy. It spews lava at regular intervals.
You can see these lava bombs shooting up just hundreds and hundreds of yards up in the air and tumbling down the side. These glowing chunks of lava are being pushed out at high pressure from these expanding gases deep inside the earth.
I've got to be careful. There've been a few close ones.
A light show like this, it's nature's fireworks. It really is the best show on Earth. However, at the same time, if you're downhill of one of these things and the lava flow is coming for your village or your house, it's hard to appreciate the beauty.
Since the volcano first erupted 10 days ago, more than 1,000 people have fled their homes. Entire communities lost under hardened lava.
Let me tell you, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday, I was inside this building as the lava flow came crashing through the door. Today, the entire building is completely destroyed by this lava flow. The good news is that it has stopped, for now. I can still hear in the distance the volcano erupting, so it could restart at any time. We don't know exactly what the future is going to hold for this town.
The economic impact is enormous. Destroyed homes, lost livelihoods, less land available for agriculture. Many of the refugees will not be coming back. But fast forward 10, 20, 30 years from now, and this land will once again offer up the nutrient-rich soil that will attract a new wave of farmers. So, despite the risk of future eruptions, the people of Fogo will eventually rebuild their communities within the caldera. It is, after all, the only option they have. Within months of leaving the island, we get word that the volcano continued to erupt, and as feared, destroyed the neighboring town of Banguera. Months after the first eruption, it's not showing any signs of stopping. Global temperatures are getting warmer. Glaciers are melting. Sea levels are rising. Scientists agree that increasing carbon dioxide emissions in the atmosphere are changing our climate. For some, where those gases are coming from is still a matter of debate. Planes, cars, and industry are commonly accepted as the main culprits. But volcanic eruptions are also known to throw huge amounts of gas into the atmosphere. I'm making it my mission to climb into one of the world's most active volcanoes to find out if those gases are contributing to climate change.
It blows me away every time I see this many cars, and this is just one highway in one city. How much carbon dioxide are we putting into the atmosphere? But it's not just us. There are other more natural sources of greenhouse gas as well. Things such as melting permafrost and cow farts, believe it or not. Some people even say that the volcanoes of the world are creating more greenhouse gas than all of the human activity combined. How do you respond to people who are, I don't even use the word skeptic, because skeptic is not the right word.
Deniers is a better word.
Deniers who are claiming volcanoes contribute more greenhouse gases than all of the industrialized countries put together.
What we're dealing here with is a deeply held belief system. It could have elements of political persuasion.
They're usually sort of predisposed to believe anything that means you don't have to do anything, don't have to take action, right? So if it's just volcanoes, well, there's nothing we can do about that, so that's fine. Just let the volcanoes go off and nature will take care of itself, you know.
At any given time, there are 50 to 60 active volcanoes around the world. Eruptions expel huge amounts of gas into the atmosphere, which some believe is leading to climate change.
I don't know if I buy that, but it's something I really need to check out, and I know just the place.
My curiosity brings me to the nation of Vanuatu. It's a small archipelago of about 80 islands in the South Pacific Ocean. I've landed in the capital of Port Vila, but my final destination is the neighboring island of Ambrym, the home of one of the world's most active volcanoes.
The weather there is notoriously awful. There's volcanic gas, there's acid rain, and of course the threat is always there for a larger eruption. So it's not the most hospitable place on Earth.
I know this area of the world well. I even got married in 2006 on the lip of an exploding volcano in Vanuatu.
That's where we're getting married, right at the top of the Yasser, and it's real active today.
Now I'm going to an even more active and more remote volcano on the island of Ambrym. I'm getting some help on this expedition.
Sarah, nice to meet you. Welcome to Vanuatu.
Sarah Hofritz is an accomplished young geologist from Denmark. She has the equipment to help us determine how much dangerous gas the volcano is emitting and if it's contributing to climate change. Frequent eruptions on Ambrym create weather conditions that make flying to the island a challenge. It looks like we've lucked out with a clear day.
The trick is it going to be clear on Ambrym? Typically the place is shrouded in cloud a lot of the time. So I've got my fingers crossed. I'm very hopeful. So far, so good.
I'm very interested in seeing how nature is behaving in this setting. It's going to be cool.
There are two active volcanic cones on this island, Mount Benbow and Mount Maroom. Over the past decade, there's been an increase in emissions of volcanic gases from both of them. In 2009, approximately 15,000 tons of sulfur dioxide was emitted into the atmosphere in one day. Despite the danger of these frequent eruptions, almost 9,000 people live on the island of Ambrym. To them, the volcano is a part of life. Before we head to the summit, Sarah and I want to gauge the effect the volcano is having on the local village of Endu.
Is this your drinking water?
Yeah. This water has a source right up on the mountain.
And is it from a well?
No,
or a spring?
It's spring water.
Spring water.
Yeah.
During major explosive eruptions, huge amounts of volcanic gas, including sulfur dioxide, get ejected into the atmosphere. Large clouds can pollute the air downwind of the volcano, and when mixed with moisture, can lead to acid rain. This contamination has harmful effects on water supplies for people, plants, and animals. Sarah came equipped to determine if this community is at risk. Today, we're testing the drinking water.
What do we have here?
This is a conductivity meter, and that will tell me how many ions in the water.
270.
Yeah, 270 microsiemens. So that means there definitely is some ions in the water. Very likely some sulfur and some fluorine, which is still rather high.
To put it into perspective, pure drinking water typically contains less than 5 microsiemens of concentrated minerals. This town's water is over 50 times that amount. Drinking contaminated water can damage teeth and bones. A recent government of Vanuatu report predicts a dire future for the island as future eruptions and resulting contamination from acid rain is almost certain. The brooding outline of the volcano is nearly always shrouded in gas and cloud.
When we have a volcano that's active like Abram is, I want to see how much sulfur dioxide and how much carbon dioxide is being emitted at the volcano.
We know volcanic eruptions emit carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, but enough to cause climate change? It's time to find out.
Awesome.
For the next 5 days, we'll be eating, sleeping, and working at the summit of this active volcano. This is about as far away from civilization as it gets.
Well, welcome to Madam.
Yeah, that's exactly. This is your leg.
The summit of a volcano is one of the most dangerous places on Earth. The air is heavy with a mixture of gases, and when inhaled, it can be deadly.
The conditions up here are so bad, I'd say the only place you'd find them is on another planet.
Our guide is Jeff Mackley, nicknamed Danger Man. He was the first person to explore the depths of this volcano.
The camp looks like it's taken a beating.
Hey, George.
Yes?
This is your tent?
Yeah.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
When you've got hurricane force winds mixed with very sharp gravel and high strength sulfuric acid, it's like somebody firing a fire hose full of gravel and sulfuric acid at you, and that can go on for a week.
The condition of this tent is a testament to what the weather can really be like up here. Extremely high winds, sandblasting with all this volcanic ash and gravel, and of course, the acid in the atmosphere has weakened this material down to nothing.
It may be dangerous at the summit, but tomorrow we'll climb down into the belly of the beast.
You can feel the heat all the way from up here.
It's very violent.
Boiling pools of lava and seemingly endless plumes of gas await us at the bottom of the crater. But I need to get closer to the volcano to find out more about the gases it's emitting. And that's where the real danger is.
Very few volcanoes are capable of producing the amount of gas that Ambram can. There are several vents here that are all vigorously degassing hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, hydrogen fluoride.
Are these dangerous gases contributing to our warming planet? Sarah has the latest technology to measure just that. She's using a fly speck to measure the sulfur dioxide levels in the air at Ambram.
So now it's scanning through the plume, going from over here and scanning the way through.
This data will reflect the amount of toxic SO2 at the summit and help us understand if and how this contributes to climate change. But to get more data, we'll have to go straight to the source.
Sarah is getting her chance to go into the volcano, so this is going to be really, really fun.
But today, visibility is poor, and I'm hoping it doesn't get any worse.
The entire crater right now is completely filled with gas.
But let's try and see if it clears up.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
You good to go?
I feel so.
For even the most experienced climber, this descent is a challenge.
Nice steady creeper.
Brad, our guide, will be leading us down the tricky descent, and I'll be following behind Sarah. With almost a straight drop of 1,200 feet to the bottom, a lot could go wrong.
To get down to the bottom, it's so deep that the ropes just are not going to be long enough, so we have to do a multi-stage rappel in 3 different steps.
Can you imagine all this used to be covered by rock, and then it had this big explosion, and now we're just in the hole of it?
Now that Sarah has safely reached the 100-yard ledge, I can start my descent.
is insane. It's beautiful.
You know, everything around here is trying to kill you, but apart from that, it's great.
The weather is closing in, making it hard to see where we're climbing.
Not feeling very confident about this.
Brad calls off the climb. It's too dangerous. The visibility has gotten so poor that we'd be doing the descent virtually blind. Our visit to the crater will have to wait.
Maybe next time. Visibility has dropped down tremendously, which is never a good thing around here. And I'm starting to feel some drizzle coming in, which usually leads to torrential rains and storms.
You can hear the roar of the wind and the gravel being brought towards you. And then your tent just violently shakes. And it just keeps battering and battering and battering your tent until, you know, bit by bit there might be something that comes loose.
An unexpected storm has delayed our mission.
We need to seal that corner up too, or we'll lose that.
We've done everything we can to secure our tents. Now, we just need to hunker down and ride out this ferocious storm. It was a tough night, but by the morning, it's over. Now we have to get back to work, which means getting to the bottom of the crater, poor visibility or not. Sarah isn't joining me on my descent today, as last night's storm took away her valuable research time.
The goal is to get all the way to the bottom, 1,200 feet, gather some rock samples for Sarah, and get some thermal imagery of the lava lake itself. Big day today. Rock and roll. It's ridiculous. Just the sound of the lava lake below. It's wild. I've described it to people as sounding like the devil's washing machine. And you don't want to end up in that spin cycle. The biggest danger is rock fall. If you knock a rope, rock comes down, hits your buddy in the head, you're dead meat. The trick is slow and steady, nice and safe, because anything and everything can go wrong here.
At the summit, Sarah is measuring how much carbon dioxide is being emitted from the soil. As long as a volcano is active, it's emitting gases. The carbon dioxide migrates through cracks to the soil on the side of the volcano. The levels of CO2 found will help Sarah in her analysis of whether volcanoes are leading to climate change.
3,000, 4,000, 5,000. I'm getting really high values. I want to see how it compares to measurements up on the crater side and getting closer and closer to the Caldera rim.
It takes me 2 grueling hours to make it down to the bottom of the crater.
Top side, I am free of the rope. Okay, we're gonna get our first look at this thing up close. Wow. This is liquid rock. The heat is just unbelievable right now. It's burning the back of my neck.
Lava lakes are a rare phenomenon, formed when molten lava becomes trapped in a volcanic crater.
First things first, I'm gonna get some
Thermal images.
Examining thermal images helps us understand more about the volcano and its activity.
Unless you've actually experienced lava firsthand, it's hard to comprehend just how hot it is.
Normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The average oven reaches 450 degrees Fahrenheit.
1200 Fahrenheit.
This is a whole other level of heat.
1400, 1600, 1697. Holy cow. I gotta be careful, I'm definitely within the splash zone.
Even the smallest piece of flying lava could burn through my clothes and skin.
Ah, it's burning. Woo. All this ejecta coming out of the lava lake are very fresh, so that should be perfect for what Sarah needs. I just gotta grab a couple of fresh samples and watch my back at the same time. It's really scary turning your back on this thing. This really fine stuff is Pele's hair. When the bubbles on the lava lake burst, they form these tiny little hairs and they'll drift all the way up to camp. I can get a little bit closer, but I'm gonna have to put on my special heat suit.
It's a good thing I came prepared. This suit can withstand temperatures up to 3,000 degrees.
I think I'm ready. If you want to get a really good view, you have to be protected, otherwise the radiant heat is just too much. Wow. That is about as crazy as it gets. My big concern right now is watching for pieces of lava splashing up. Wow. Here's some big pieces coming. Big pieces coming.
I can't leave before collecting some samples for Sarah.
Oh, here we go. Here's a really fresh piece, still glowing hot. Oh. Ah, ah. Even with the gloves. Today was a success. Got up close, got some really good samples, some good thermal data.
The newly formed lava samples will give us the most accurate results about their chemical makeup and indicate the quantity and types of gases being emitted. This will help Sarah determine if volcanoes are contributing to climate change.
It's just, really, it's not like anywhere else. This pit, you expect the devil himself to come jumping out of it. I got some goodies for you. These are the ones that were fresh out of the volcano. They were so hot. So this is the newest rock on Earth. You want it fresh? I got you fresh.
We've now collected data from the summit and straight from the lava lake in the crater. If this volcano is having any effect on climate change, we'll have the numbers to prove it. We've spent the last few days on this volcano gathering data to help investigate the claim that volcanoes contribute to climate change. Now, it's the moment of truth.
What you got?
I'm looking at some of the data, and I've summed it up.
First, Sarah analyzes the carbon dioxide readings she took from the soil surrounding the volcano. How much gas is it emitting?
The carbon dioxide is up around 21,000 tons a day.
21,000 tons a day just from here, yeah?
Yes, from the Ambrum.
Next, Sarah adds up the sulfur dioxide emissions she took at the summit to see how much Ambrum is releasing.
The volcano here is emitting around 7,800 tons a day. It's a lot of sulfur dioxide.
But to get a clear answer, Sarah needs to add the sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide results to the data that's being collected from other volcanoes around the world.
Total volcanic budget, global, that's 0.26 gigatons a year. So it's quite a lot.
But most importantly, how does that compare to human activity?
Human activity is 35 gigatons a year.
35 gigatons.
Yes.
Versus 0.2 for all volcanoes combined.
Yes.
So, do volcanoes contribute to global warming?
I think you're gonna say no.
No.
Definitely
no. It doesn't. We have the numbers to prove it.
Yes.
In fact, According to data collected by scientists around the world, the sulfur dioxide gas being released here can actually help the planet. The gas forms tiny droplets of sulfuric acid, also known as volcanic aerosols, which block sunlight, and that causes the climate to cool.
After large eruptions like Mount Pinatubo, Mount St. Helens, detectable drops in temperature were found around the world due to sulfur dioxide and other aerosols in the atmosphere from these eruptions. Even with all this unimaginable heat, power, and gas that comes out of not just this volcano, but all the world's volcanoes, the amount of greenhouse gas that comes out of them only amounts to about 1% of the total greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. Whew. The rest comes from us. Volcanoes are not to blame. We have volcanoes to thank. The wind is really picking up.
I'm in Australia, a land of extremes. Extreme heat, floods, and fires.
The fire is crossing the road just right ahead of us. Wow!
Climate change is making it all more intense. This year's fire season has come early, and it's shaping up to be one of the worst in history.
That could get seriously big. Oh, shit's gonna get seriously big.
We know life in Australia is becoming unbearably hot. Could climate change make the country uninhabitable? That's what I'm here to find out. Australia is vast and diverse, with coasts that meet 5 different seas. Being down under usually conjures images of an idyllic life of surf and sand, but a more realistic portrait of the country is emerging, that of a hostile desert.
The Central Australian outback. This place is inhospitable on a good day. Droughts and heat waves are commonplace here. Last summer, they experienced the hottest day on record, the hottest month on record, and the hottest summer on record.
In fact, Australia had to add 2 new colors to its weather maps for temperatures hotter than 122 degrees Fahrenheit.
Sun is something we escape here. Sun is something we avoid here. The sun will kill you here, quite literally. You're outside with no shelter, 3 days is all you got.
I came to Australia on a mission of discovery to find out if climate change was causing this place to become uninhabitable.
Flooding, droughts, and heat waves are nothing new here, but records show they're increasing in intensity and frequency. Deaths from heat waves have doubled in the last decade. Drought has drained reservoirs and driven families off the land they've farmed for generations. But what's fueling all these extremes?
Without a doubt, this stuff's being driven up by the fact we've got more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The climate's warming, it's shifting to a hotter state.
Australia is part of a global problem. Countries around the world are pumping more carbon into the atmosphere than ever before, mostly by burning coal, oil, and gas. The resulting extremes in weather, prolonged heat and bone-dry conditions lead to vicious bushfires. Lightning is most often the spark.
Victoria ablaze.
Year after year, the fire season is starting earlier, lasting longer, and fires are burning more intensely.
These things aren't just fires creeping along, these are firestorms. These are roiling, burning masses of gas that can just jump across grassy areas and start burning. They're huge phenomena that can move quickly, develop quickly, and fires are only going to get worse.
Bushfires are almost 20 times more deadly and 80 times more destructive than a century ago. This morning in the Adelaide Hills, it's already a scorching 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
The danger has been elevated last night up to catastrophic for today, and doesn't really get any more dangerous than catastrophic.
A decade ago, the worst fire weather conditions were called extreme. They've since had to add a level beyond that, catastrophic.
So what the firefighters are demonstrating right now is their protection system. They have shields that come down on the inside of the glass and a water spray that surrounds the entire truck. So if the fire overtakes the truck, it keeps these guys safe. That is impressive.
And the risks for those on the front line are very real. Since 1980, 83 firefighters have been killed.
I hope you guys never have to use it.
Yeah, so do we.
Thanks, guys.
On a catastrophic fire day, access to burn areas is highly restricted.
Oh, I reckon that's pretty good.
The only way in is with the fire crews themselves.
Go.
Ian Tanner, a veteran with the Country Fire Service, is going to show me what they're up against.
We've got conservation park on both sides, so it's mostly vegetation.
Fuel.
Fuel, that's exactly right, fuel.
What the locals call vegetation, you call fuel.
We're traveling along a ridge through the Mount Lofty ranges. On both sides are steep hills and valleys covered in dense bush.
You get a real sense now of what we're up against, and fire typically goes up.
It's the one thing that can go uphill faster than downhill.
All those houses up on that ridge line are almost undefendable on a day like today.
So people are evacuating their houses on the speculation that maybe a fire might form.
That's correct.
So how many people are we talking about here?
You could be talking about 100,000 people or more.
That's a major evacuation.
Obviously not everyone does it. And
clearly.
There's a house down there that's probably relatively safe. They would probably choose to stay home.
The Moorcrofts are incredibly well armed in their fight to protect their home from fire.
What I would really love is to see your sprinkler system in action.
Okay.
So what have you got going on?
Their elaborate sprinkler system can create a wall of water approximately 130 feet around the house.
We've lived here for 20 years and we haven't actually had a fire that's come within, well, a few hundred meters of the house.
The water comes from a 5,000-gallon tank that's dedicated solely to firefighting.
And so you got your personal bushfire kit? Radio.
This is the channel that gives all the fire warnings.
A headlamp. And this is all in the name of home protection.
That's right. Just never know when it could happen, so you always need to be prepared.
So if you live in the bush in Australia, the very bare minimum that you need to protect your property is this type of equipment. So we've got a report that just came in of a grass fire not too far away. And there's some other units that are being deployed.
Okay. At the moment, it's probably in grassland.
Oh, yeah, I see some smoke, yeah.
Firefighters and volunteers arrive at the scene very quickly.
Where's the access?
There's a low-intensity fire in a predominantly grassy area. It's roughly 40 acres in size.
Here comes the crane.
It's crucial firefighters act quickly. They know from experience they only have 15 minutes to get this fire out, because on a catastrophic fire day, conditions can change in a second.
If you have a look at the leaves in the trees, you can see that the leaves are still there, so the fire hasn't got up into the trees.
Right.
So it's come through here fairly quickly. It's not real big high flames.
Here's an area where you can see the fire is just in this very low-lying fuel. So just the grass and the leaf litter.
Incoming!
Fire retardants.
In no time, the fire is pretty much out.
These guys are really on the ball. They're so fast at what they do.
Ground crews are backed by highly trained professionals and volunteers who dispatch crews and analyze fire behavior. As climate change increases the intensity of bushfires, operations have had to grow larger and more sophisticated.
It's very fluky wind at the moment. You feel that wind now picking up?
That doesn't bode well for the rest of the afternoon.
No.
This steep topography can funnel the wind, making fire behavior very unpredictable.
You can see how these hot spots can easily flare up again. It doesn't take much. You get a little ember from something like this, and you've got a whole new fire.
And just as the fire is almost completely put out, Ian gets bad news.
It's jumped.
Right. Jumped across this little valley.
Crews have to act fast. They know that one ember in this thick brush with poor access could turn this small grass fire into a monster.
And the fire is just right ahead of us. Wow!
As climate change raises temperatures across Australia, it's fueling unprecedented bushfires.
Okay, that fire behind us.
What started as a small grass fire that was nearly put out has jumped into the thicker brush and is growing very quickly.
It's coming up through the grass here. Water bomber overhead. You can see it's getting very, very close, and it's gonna jump this. This is no fire break, it's gonna go. We're getting called back. Yeah, we're going.
It's spotted over the creek. Now, if it does that again and again, it gets very hard.
Australian bushfires are notorious for jumping huge distances. This is largely because of the eucalyptus trees. Firefighters call them gasoline trees because fire moves incredibly fast up the trunk, along the string of bark to the canopy of the tree. Up there, broad leaves that are filled with combustible eucalyptus oil don't just burn, they explode, shooting flaming bark and leaves in all directions. Add a good wind, and fire can be thrown as far as 20 miles away.
The situation is changing very, very dynamically. I've been given the 2-minute warning here. We have to get out because the wind is starting to change direction. I can see the smoke now blowing this way, so we got to bolt.
The fire has fully taken in the scrub. Heavier fuels mean the fire burns more intensely and is much harder to put out. Air bombers attack the head of the fire, but it rekindles in minutes. The fire's moving fast and is headed straight for the town of Kersbrook, where residents are scrambling to evacuate.
Just on one of the access roads here, and the fire is just coming up over the ridge and crossing the road, just right ahead of us. And it's just making its way up on these branches. We've got a safe escape route down this way. We've got to really keep a close eye on the fire behavior. This tree here is already up. The wind is predominantly blowing in this direction, so the fire is going to spread this way. Here it comes. Wow!
In just a few hours, the fire has left a path of destruction through the hills 10 miles long and a half-mile wide.
Water bomber. Lizard running from the fire. That's what happens. The fire just pushes all these animals out ahead, and they're just running for their lives. So I'm gonna bring them over to a safe spot and let them free.
Fire continues down the ridge, leaving total destruction in its wake.
So you'll see it's not much left now.
So all this fire damage is just moments old. It's still hot.
Topography drew it to the top of the hill, and now it's heading south again at a fair rate of knots.
The fire burns through the forest, heating the ground 40 feet in front of it, making it impossible for crews to get close. We're able to follow the tail of the fire. That is, until shifting winds change everything.
Wow.
Until now, this fire was spreading with a narrow front. An extreme 90-degree wind shift has now turned the flank fire into a head fire, going from a half-mile wide front to a 10-mile wide front in the blink of an eye.
Is there any chance we're going to be able to stop it getting through there?
No way, mate.
That could get seriously big.
Oh, shit's going to get seriously big, mate.
Support is called in from fire services in the neighboring states. But will they have the resources to stop the fire before it sweeps into the populated hillside towns?
Right now, there's basically nothing that the firefighters can do. They're trying to protect some of the assets, homes, farms in the area, but that's all they can do, try and slow it down. Goes to show how capricious fire actually can be. All it takes is a little ember from a fire that we thought was out to just light up the whole area.
And the bigger the fire, the more erratically it can behave.
Smoke devil!
On rare occasions, fire whirls can develop and throw burning debris miles away.
Whoa! This bunch of trees is basically exploding right here. The oil in the eucalyptus is picking up all that heat, and there was just this big surge. Oh. The wind is really picking up.
Ah! The heat I'm feeling on my face right now is almost undescribable. Yeah, gotta back away from that. Ah.
Let's make sure the wildlife here has an exit. The fire spreads erratically and is fanned in some places by 65-mile-an-hour winds. It's burning in what is Australia's third hottest year ever recorded. The hottest was just 2 years earlier.
Looks like there's possibly another fire out here. See the smoke on the horizon?
As night falls, firefighters do everything they can to contain this out-of-control bushfire.
Crews will start to get on top of it tonight. Tomorrow could be a whole nother interesting story with some more bad weather forecast.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Fire crews work all through the night. But the mark of a heat wave is that nighttime temperatures aren't much lower than in the daytime. On day 2, the fire is declared a major emergency. So far, it's burned through 27,000 acres. It's hit 4 towns and 13 firefighters have been injured, and they have to deal with more catastrophic fire weather.
It is a scorching hot day with very low relative humidity. Of course, as these temperatures continue to stay hot year after year after year, we're just going to see more and more fires just like this one.
We know this because we can see that all of Australia's weather is changing. Because of climate change, Australian winters are now dumping more rainfall in big bursts, causing flooding, which results in more vegetation growth and so denser bush. But in the summer, the heat is on. More hot, dry days lead to drought, and all that dense bush turns into kindling. All you need is a spark to start a raging wildfire. We're briefed that 2 new major fires have broken out and are threatening the towns of Tantanoola and Glen Cove.
How's the house in here? I don't know, I'll ask him to go in and check.
This family got out safely, but nothing could be done to save their farm. This is the reality of living in South Australia. It's inhabitable, but just.
It's really astounding to see the power of these wildfires, just the tremendous speed at which they can spread, how hot they can burn, and how much of an effect they can have on the people that live here.
Over the next 4 days, 20 homes are destroyed and considerable livestock and crops are lost. But luckily, no one has died. That's not been the case in the past. The country's worst ever natural disaster was a bushfire.
We're finding more bodies as we gain access.
In 2009, 173 people died in the Black Saturday fire. Will firefighters in South Australia be able to stop this fire from turning into a similar disaster? By day 5, fire crews in South Australia are exhausted, but they continue to do everything they can to protect surrounding communities.
We want neat edges right along this other side if we can.
What really impresses me is the response that you guys have. So many trucks, so many volunteers. The people around here really do seem to listen to the warnings.
Yep.
And obviously some places, all you can do is stand back and watch. There's nothing you can do in a lot of situations. So, yeah.
These firefighters are on the front lines dealing with some of the worst effects of climate change in Australia. Ultimately, it takes them 6 days to bring this bushfire under control. It burned through almost 32,000 acres. 27 homes were destroyed and 134 people, mainly firefighters, were injured. The total cost was nearly $40 million. This fire is one more dramatic reminder that the effects of climate change are upon us. It's a lesson that's hitting home from one end of Australia to the other. Australians are being forced to find unique remedies to their superheated climate. and they've come up with some creative solutions to the problem. In the heart of the Australian outback, the town of Kourounis has already found a drastic way to deal with the searing heat.
Well, come on down and I'll give you an idea of how we live. You're 10 metres underground here.
This place looks amazing. It's certainly not cave-like. You even have a window.
Yep.
And that's just a borehole to the surface. Cool in the summer, warmer in the winter.
Yeah.
No heating or air conditioning costs whatsoever.
No. Ideal.
For those days under 30 degrees, the resourceful adaptations of Kourounis continue outside.
So this is the Kourounis golf course. I see you're missing something rather important, grass.
Yes, so we got blacks instead of greens.
And you have 18 holes here?
18 holes.
This is the worst golf course I've ever seen.
Yep, and it's probably the worst in the world. Your ball will always end up in the rough here. Someone's just gone ahead and built an 18-hole golf course in the middle of Central Australia as an act of defiance. It's like, you tell me I can't, well, here it is.
And that sort of defines the Australian personality of?
Yes, that pioneering mentality.
The people of Kourounis have found a unique way to beat the heat, but this is just one community. If temperatures keep rising the way they have been, the entire country may soon look like this. But will it become uninhabitable?
Well, not to Australians. The one thing that I've learned about these people is that they are strong, they are resilient. They take pride in being able to adapt and survive in these types of environments, as harsh as they might be.
There may not be a need to adapt if Australia's climate becomes more hospitable. That could happen if countries around the world reduce the amount of greenhouse gas they're putting into the atmosphere. As Australians confront the most dire effects of climate change, they're turning to alternative energy sources to fight the problem. Australia is giving the rest of the world a glimpse of the future if climate change goes unchecked. Maybe it can also show the world what can be done to fight it. I'm in Siberia, the coldest inhabited place on Earth. As global temperatures rise, this enormous icy land is melting. The entire region is built on top of permafrost, which is now thawing at an alarming rate. The ground is collapsing, traditional ways of life are threatened, and large amounts of previously trapped methane gas are seeping into the atmosphere. Siberia's big thaw could have a catastrophic effect on the entire planet.
This is red-eye flight number 3 of 3,
heading to the city of Yakutsk in Siberia. We're on our way to one of the most northerly cities in Russia. Just 280 miles from the Arctic Circle, 6 time zones from Moscow. I'm joined by Aliona Pimenova, who'll be my translator and guide as I travel to some of the coldest places on Earth. It's my first time in Siberia. It's an enormous region that covers 77% of Russia. To put it in perspective, it takes up about 10% of the land mass on Earth. It is massive, and a good portion of that is permafrost. That land that is frozen all the time except for that top layer that freezes in the winter, thaws in the summer. 70% of Russia lies on permafrost. It's a permanently frozen layer below the Earth's surface, made up of layer after layer of soil, sediment, rock, and ice, built up over thousands of years. So, how deep does it go? Yakutsk has what I need to find out.
The deepest hole in permafrost anywhere. And it just so happens they're doing maintenance on it today.
They're going to work right now. They're trying to get rid of the ice.
It's called the Shurgan Shaft. Started in 1827 and now 380 feet deep, built to explore how far down the frozen ground goes.
It's really amazing how deep this shaft really is. There's a chart here on the wall. The worker that's down there right now is about here. It goes a long way down.
Information acquired here shows that the permafrost in Siberia is some of the thickest in the world, 1.5 miles deep in some places. The entire city of Yakutsk is built on it, which has led to some peculiar adaptations.
One thing about building a city on permafrost is the top layer, well, it's not so permanent. So a lot of the buildings here in Yakutsk are actually up on these concrete stilts. It's the only way to keep the foundations from warping when it melts and refreezes. Installing and repairing pipes in frozen ground, extremely difficult. So what they've done is put them above ground and insulated the hell out of them.
Infrastructure and houses are vulnerable to the shifting ground.
Some of the buildings here in Yakutsk are actually twisting and sinking into the permafrost. This is known as subsidence.
The top layer refreezes each winter, but to varying thicknesses as Siberia gets warmer. Today, it's -1 degree Celsius, which is far from normal.
The average winter temperature here in Yakutsk is actually -34 degrees. It is nowhere near that today. The skaters are enjoying this warm spell.
Siberia is one of the fastest warming places on the planet, and that has potentially serious consequences for the permafrost below.
What most people don't realize is that trapped under the permafrost here is a ticking time bomb for climate change.
I've come to the underground laboratory here at the Permafrost Institute to learn more.
The coolest part of the Permafrost Institute, literally and figuratively, is the tunnel they've built underneath the building, 12 meters down. Here they can actually study the permafrost in situ.
Leading expert Dr. Alexander Fedorov has observed some big changes.
Вот это большая проблема.
This is the main problem that they are studying, the permafrost melting.
Right.
Изменение температуры мерзлых пород идут. Глубина протаивания увеличивается, и криогенные процессы сильно активизируются.
Melting permafrost is releasing huge amounts of methane gas, causing global concern. Researchers have found lakes literally bubbling with methane. Permafrost acts like a lid, locking carbon gases like methane in the ground. All that gas was formed from long-buried organic matter, dead animals, and plant life that have been on ice for thousands of years. Now, increased heat is penetrating deeper into the permafrost, thawing it, and releasing these dangerous greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This could have a bigger impact on global warming than the burning of fossil fuels.
Усиление вот этого глобального потепления, она может произойти очень быстро.
Our carbon emissions cause the permafrost to melt, releasing methane gas, which causes the climate to warm, which causes the permafrost to melt even more. Runaway greenhouse effect that could put us in the position where it becomes irreversible.
Every year, Dr. Fedorov and his team drill deep into the ground to analyze changes in the permafrost.
How far down do you drill?
5 meters, 6 meters.
That's some tough stuff.
Dr. Fedorov probes the permafrost in many locations. And what he's seeing in northern Yakutia is alarming.
We have surface subsidence more than 2 meters.
Surface subsidence of 2 meters.
Subside.
As the icy permafrost melts, the ground sinks. The formation of thaw ponds and lakes is rapidly increasing all over northeastern Siberia.
You're seeing dramatic changes.
Yes, yes.
Scientists predict that the area of permafrost in the northern hemisphere will decline by 20 to 35% by the middle of this century, releasing a monumental amount of greenhouse gas. But as the ground melts, it's also unearthing some fascinating finds.
It looks like roadkill from last week, but it's 12,000 years old.
While the melting permafrost is a major concern, there is one positive side effect. The thawing has led to some incredible discoveries.
It's not just methane gas that's released by the melting permafrost. Sometimes things like woolly mammoths are found here, and Yakutia is the place in the world to find these frozen prehistoric creatures. There's a researcher here who's going to show me exactly what that's all about.
The Mammoth Museum houses the most diverse collection of ancient animals in the world, some of which were recently exposed in the thawing ground.
Do you think that as our climate gets warmer, it'll be easier to find more of these mammoths?
Да, возможно, есть какая-то связь. Да? Сейчас вот у нас на севере Якутии есть, образовалась огромная дыра в земле, котловина, где вот нашли вот этого бизончика, который там лежит, и тушу лошади.
Today, Professor Grigoriev is taking me behind the scenes to show me some of his most impressive discoveries.
Most important place in museum.
Yes. Wow.
Mammoth tusks.
Yes.
Very good preserved. Tusks of Malalechovsky mammoth. With blood, with muscles. And one of the first domesticated dog on
What
the
is
road.
the first domesticated dog?
Geological age, 12,500.
12,500 years old.
The pressure of layer upon layer of built-up ice flattened this dog.
It looks like roadkill from last week, but it's 12,000 years old. You can see the teeth and the hair, everything here. It's amazing.
You can find similar find only in Yakutia.
Without a question, this is the strangest walk-in freezer that I've ever been in.
The discovery of prehistoric animals demonstrates that the land is thawing, but how much of it is melting is so far unknown.
So I've met with the scientists, but what I want to do next is meet with the people who live off the land.
I want to see how the melting permafrost is affecting them. I'm hitting the road and heading far north to some of the most isolated communities in Russia. I'll be camping with reindeer herders along the way to my ultimate destination, Oymyakon, the coldest town on Earth.
Eliona!
Oh.
Eliona and our driver Artum will be making the journey with me. It's going to take 4 days of driving in treacherous conditions. First, we need to get across the Lena River, which for now is frozen solid.
At least that's what I like to believe. Today is about a 8 to 10 hour drive getting from Yakutsk up to Kandiga, and that's where I'm going to be spending the night. And back onto solid ground.
We're now on the Kolyma Highway, otherwise known as the Road of Bones.
It looks like any other road, but very few roads have the history that this one does.
It was built during the Stalinist era by the prisoners of the infamous Gulag labor camps. The skeletons of the forced laborers who died during its construction were just buried into the road itself. The road is notoriously treacherous. It was laid on permafrost, so it's twisted and uneven. In places, it's very narrow and covered in a layer of thick snow.
A common practice during the coldest part of the year is to never travel alone. If you break down and you've got no help, bad things happen very quickly when it's minus 50.
It doesn't take long before we spot trouble up ahead.
This truck lost its load of pipes and went right off the road. I've heard so many stories about this road, how dangerous it is. Usually the weather conditions are bad. This road lives up to its name.
An hour and a half later, there's another accident.
So the emergency services guys are down there right now. Oh, wow. It's been just one obstacle after another all day long, and we still have a long way to go.
We press on, but getting to Oymyakon is not going to be easy. After sneaking in a few hours of sleep in Kandiga, we're back on the road early the next day.
So the plan today is to go a little further north up to one of the Gulag areas. Heaven forbid, if you were a criminal or a political prisoner, this is where you would have been sent. It's quite a bit further north. It's going to take quite a few hours to get up there on a really bad road.
And the camp is away from the roads. It's not going to be easy to find. There's a lot of barbed wire here. Another building down there. The gulags were a vast system of prisons that spanned the entire Soviet Union. And between the 1930s and early 1950s, between 15 and 20 million people working hard labor, long hours, in all conditions, all seasons. Horrible. Work people to death.
To honor the prisoners, locals have built a museum in their memory. Many were convicted of the most minor offenses, like Anna Aminalova.
Она в 43-м году, 14-летняя девочка, ее отправили по этапу Магадана, осудили на 10 лет за то, что она, воровала килограмм картошки.
She survived, and her story can be told. But many did not make it out.
These gates are not particularly high, not particularly strong, but then again, they didn't need to be. In this terrain, in Siberia, if you escape, you faced almost certain death in the wilderness.
We're back on the road of bones, and our plan is to reach the reindeer herders of Uchige first thing tomorrow. It's slow going, and we're down to one lane when we hit another roadblock.
This is actually a pretty serious situation right now. We have several vehicles stuck on this road, and no one can move in either direction. Not good. Thankfully, it's not minus 50.
Everyone pulls together. The road is cleared, and we can keep moving.
We are free and clear for now. Fingers crossed. Time to switch up the mode of transportation.
I'm joining the local reindeer herders for a journey into the wilderness. Their 1,400-year-old way of life is being threatened by the changing climate, and I want to understand more.
Off to the next leg of my adventure. On a reindeer sled in Siberia. Woo! It's like dog sledding with less barking.
Reindeer herders rely on the income from selling reindeer meat, a staple in this part of the world. They're constantly moving and must trek every few weeks across this vast wilderness to find new pastures for their reindeer to graze.
Whoa! Whoa! Ow. Oh. We just had some kind of harness failure. Ouch.
After 3 hours of sledding, we've hit base camp.
It's home for tonight.
The temperature is minus 20, which is actually warm for this time of year, a trend the local herders have noticed.
В этом году в ноябре-декабре тепло было, потом резко в какой-то период заморозки стали, потом опять потеплело потихоньку.
Every aspect of their life revolves around the weather, and they have to be able to work with it, work around it, and still be able to prosper and survive.
But now, the warming climate and melting permafrost is slowly killing off the reindeer. Mikhail Pogodayev has lived with the reindeer his entire life. He now advocates for their survival.
When climate is changing and you see that there are changes on the snow conditions, the reindeer will starve if the pastures will be packed with the ice.
As warm spells increase, the snow melts, leaving a layer of water. But in a snap freeze, an ice crust forms that the reindeer can't penetrate to find food. 12,000 reindeer died of starvation last year. For the herders, climate change is very real. I'm camping out with the herders for the night. They're preparing a hearty meal, stew, hot tea, and vodka.
A tradition they have here
is to make a little sacrifice before every meal. Usually a bit of food, or maybe a splash of vodka, goes into the fire for good luck and health.
It's time for bed. The sun is going down, and so are the temperatures. It's minus 40 degrees, and it's shaping up to be one of the coldest sleeps of my life. Tomorrow, the pole of cold is in our sights, and even this place isn't immune to climate change.
The fire died about halfway through the night. Whew. Inside the tent, that's what happened to my water. It was kind of cold.
It's time for me to leave the reindeer and carry on my journey north. We head out. We make sure to load up at the last gas station before Oymyakon. After a day's driving, we make it to our final destination, the coldest town on Earth. It's a bumpy arrival.
I guess this is the kind of roads you get when you build your town on permafrost. The road just twists and buckles.
In the 1920s and 30s, it was a seasonal stop for reindeer herders. Now, it's a permanent settlement of just 500 people.
I finally made it to Oymyakon, the pole of cold. And on February 6, 1933, they recorded a temperature of minus 71.2 Celsius, extremely cold. Nowhere in the northern hemisphere has a temperature that low ever been recorded.
It may be cold out, but our reception is warm. The locals are performing a traditional welcoming ceremony for us.
So what is it about this place in particular that makes it so cold? The main reason is that Oymyakon sits in a valley. The cold air is trapped by these mountains, and it just sits there and pools. Beautiful blue sky, but bone-chillingly cold.
But not as cold as expected. Today, it's minus 31. Aliona and I are at the local weather station, where we meet meteorologist Mika Bakarova. They've been recording temperatures for the last 50 years here, and have observed some big changes.
Вторая декада марта официальная, на 4 градуса температура была выше средних многолетних норм.
Local fishermen have noticed the shift as well.
Раньше здесь лед такая толстая была, да? Сейчас уже такая становится, потоньше.
Arctic temperatures are expected to increase between 1.5 to 2.5 degrees by 2040, meaning the permafrost will continue to thaw at a dangerous rate.
We're afraid that we're going to reach a tipping point where our carbon emissions cause the permafrost to melt, releasing methane gas, which causes the climate to warm, which causes the permafrost to melt even more, and you can see where this is headed.
There's no doubt the temperature here is warming, but if global greenhouse emissions can be reduced, it may not be too late to halt this rise and keep the permafrost frozen. Laos is a place of great beauty with a brutal past. The people here have fought for survival and used their land for protection. The vast caves provided shelter from a bombing campaign which decimated the country. But now there's a new enemy: rapid deforestation. More and more farmers are clearing the land, and big industry is destroying forests at an alarming rate. As climate change continues, this degradation has a global impact. Laos is at the tipping point of change, but can this developing country balance the needs of the people with the needs of the planet? I'm in Southeast Asia, in the small landlocked country of Laos. I've landed in the capital of Vientiane. Laos is one of the last remaining communist countries in the world. Here, the pace of life is slower. The people are poor, but rich in tradition and history.
Every morning, the local monks walk down the street to the temple, and people give them food, and that's their sustenance for the day.
Its geography is breathtaking. Limestone formations, called karsts, are surrounded by lush forest and a land rich in resources like timber and minerals. But increasingly, this small country is under big pressure. Its climate is changing, the dry seasons are getting longer, and its disappearing forest is causing global concern. I'm on a journey to find the source of these problems. I'm starting in central Laos, in the Shanghai province, to learn about an old and controversial farming practice.
The smell of smoke is thick in the air. It looks like it's foggy, but it's actually smoke up in the mountains.
The ground is on fire as farmers burn their land, clearing it to plant new crops. It's called slash and burn and happens for 4 months every year during the dry season.
On the hillside behind me is a really good example of a typical slash and burn for here in Laos. What the farmer has done is cut down the old vegetation, let it sit and dry out for a while, and then set it on fire to get it ready for the next crop.
Farmers are poor and the terrain is steep and difficult. Slash and burn is the most practical technique they have to fertilize the soil and grow their crops.
Wow. Got a significant burn operation going on here.
It's an agricultural practice dating back thousands of years. It's not pretty, but it is effective. During the burn, carbon enters the atmosphere as CO2, but after, a mineral-rich residue of potassium, phosphorus, silica, and other minerals are left, providing nutrients for the rice crop. Dr. Terry Bolger is a scientific advisor to the Lao government. He's been studying the practice firsthand. He tells me what happens next.
Then you have the ash on the ground and you've opened up the ground surface. So in a few weeks' time when the rain comes, then they'll plant into this with their crop, most likely upland rice.
Very low tech.
Yep. The farmer will just go around with what they call a dibbling stick. So it's just a stick that's maybe a bit pointed on the end, and they'll poke holes at about 25 centimeter intervals, and then in each hole they just drop a few rice seeds.
In the next stage, the monsoon rains will fall and help all those nutrients sink into the soil. Farmers rely on the rains to nourish crops, but the dry seasons are lasting longer, so the harvest could be drastically reduced, and that affects entire villages.
These bigger burns, it's actually going to be the fields of multiple families from one village.
And how much space would they clear typically?
Let's say they might only burn 1/10 of their farming land each year and then rotate around. Now, when population density or pressure on the land starts to get higher, then the system ecologically doesn't work so well anymore.
As more poor Laotians turn to agriculture for survival, the amount of available farmland gets smaller. For the farmers who can't afford sophisticated farm equipment and fertilizers, the merits of this technique are obvious.
Slash and burn agriculture is normal for this part of the world, and no single farmer is going to put that much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. However, no raindrop believes that it's responsible for the flood, so if you add up a lot of these together, thousands upon thousands, the impact does become significant.
But this is not just a farming practice confined to Laos. Worldwide, an estimated 250 to 300 million farmers use slash and burn. It's illegal in Laos because the government worries that too much of the land is being degraded.
You get more erosion, you get more problems with weeds, and you get declines in soil fertility. So those are the main three things that end up making the system sustainable.
As we travel throughout the region, fires are everywhere. The air quality is poor, and some fires are out of control.
Oh, wow. Looks like this slash and burn got a little bit more burn than they were expecting. Coming up the hill, the one thing you don't want to be is uphill of a fire. The wind has really picked up, so that's going to fan the flames.
This fire is getting too close to the nearby village.
A little close for comfort right now.
And there are very few resources to fight the blaze.
Right now, all these little kids are scrambling down the hill with this fire hose because they're fast and they can get through the bush really, really quickly and get that hose to the fire.
sound.
The winds shift, and eventually the fire burns out. The fires set by farmers can destroy swaths of forest, but are by no means the biggest threat to the land here.
You know, now there's other projects like mining projects or hydropower projects or large plantation tree projects that are all competing for the traditional lands that were used by the local villagers for slash and burn.
All of these factors have contributed to the forest cover in Laos declining from 70% to 41% of the land in 40 years. One of the worst culprits is logging, much of it illegal. The demand for wood in neighboring Vietnam and China has contributed to a logging boom. Many old forests have also been cleared for large and profitable rubber tree plantations. The government has now restricted how much land gets cleared, but observers say the rules are not strict enough and are being ignored. It's a problem all over Southeast Asia, which has the fastest rate of forest decline in the world. As trees are cut down, 1.6 billion tons of carbon dioxide a year get released into the atmosphere due to deforestation. Forest carbon is released when trees burn or when they decay after dying. But trees are also necessary for our planet's survival. Through photosynthesis, trees absorb harmful carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They then use sunlight to turn the CO2 into oxygen, which is put back into the air, helping animals and plants breathe. And now, the devastating effects of deforestation are having a massive impact on the wildlife of Laos. Not long ago, the forests of Laos were home to large populations of both wild and domesticated elephants. But today, they're on the brink of extinction. Wide-scale logging in Southeast Asia is a serious threat to the global ecosystem. I've come to an elephant conservation center in a remote part of northern Laos to see the impact deforestation has had on the elephant population.
It's early morning. The elephants have been left out in the forest overnight so they can rest up and graze. And now, the mahouts are going to go and find them and bring them back to the conservation center.
Once, Laos was called the land of 1 million elephants. But a dramatic loss of almost 85% of their traditional habitat means that the population in Laos has declined from 2,000 or 3,000 in the late 80s to around 800.
They really are majestic animals in every sense of that word. They move with such purpose, almost in slow motion, and they have just so much mass, but yet at the same time, so much grace.
Elephants are paying a steep price for illegal logging in this country. Dr. Annabelle Perez is a biologist here, and she helps rehabilitate elephants.
Half of the population, or more than half of the population, is still working logging in Laos.
Most of the elephants here have been rescued from the logging industry. Their riders, called mahouts, rely on the income to survive. They work the elephants to the point of exhaustion and injury. Some are even drugged so that they'll work faster. These conditions have resulted in the elephants not breeding. Their numbers have plummeted.
For years and years, we treat them like they are slaves, you know? So, and I think now is the point to change this. It's time now to admire them again and respect them.
The center is encouraging mahouts to give up logging and use their elephants differently. They're part of an ecotourism retraining program where they're learning new ways of handling the elephants.
Not all the mahouts are bad mahouts, you know? Right. They understand why it's better to give food instead to hit them.
Touch, voice signals, and food prompts are used while working with the elephants. They want to preserve the tradition of mahouts, but put it to good use in a modernizing world.
Okay.
There we go.
Here we go. Okay, now you say side.
Side.
All right.
Side.
Okay.
Side.
And then shake your leg now. Use your voice.
Trying to remember all the commands. Side. Quiet. Quiet.
The center also runs a full veterinary practice and a special nursery for newborn elephants.
It's pretty amazing watching Mama and the baby. So cute.
Set in 250 acres, it's a safe haven away from logging, where the babies and mothers can thrive.
This area is specifically for the elephants to interact and socialize on their own, without the mahouts, without people around, just doing their thing. Do you think the future is bright for the elephants of Laos?
It depends. They can, now is the point, like, or we can make the difference and go here, or we can keep destroying the forest and go down.
Elephants are not the only ones who've struggled for survival. Not long ago, Laotians themselves had to reshape the environment to save their lives. Laos's relationship with its environment has always been one of adaptation. Working with nature to survive in difficult circumstances is nothing new for Laotians.
It's impossible to come to Laos and not talk about UXO, which stands for Unexploded Ordnance. Bombs. Lots of bombs.
Just 40 years ago, millions of bombs were raining down on Laos during the US secret war here. You can see remnants of them everywhere.
During the Vietnam War period, the Americans dropped more bombs per capita here in Laos than any other country has been bombed in the world.
To survive, the villagers and opposition communists sought refuge in the vast caves in the hills. Terry and I are going into the Vien Sai caves.
That is one serious door.
This cave was a hospital.
Look at a stack of hospital beds.
Yeah. Incubator.
It was built in the late 1960s at the height of the bombing.
This part of this cave was mainly used as an operating room for treating people and a maternity ward. What an interesting place to have a baby. Yikes. Being bombed in a cave.
There were more than 400 caves in this area. Elaborate warrens of tunnels connected eating and sleeping quarters, schools, workplaces, military barracks, and government offices.
Up to 20,000 people were living in these caves. They could hide in here for years. It just goes on and on, doesn't it? They knew that they were in for the long haul. They've reinforced the ceilings, expanded some of the passageways.
Oh, wow, this must be the theater.
They survived 9 years of constant bombing. It's estimated that 20,000 lives were saved by these caves, and that they helped secure victory. The US stopped its bombing campaign in 1973. Today, Laos's caves are helping the world understand a major threat to the planet: climate change. Scientists have figured out how to read the messages that these caves are offering up. Terry and I head to the next cave.
Now there's a lot of limestone here in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, this area in central Laos that carries into central Vietnam a little bit is one of the largest blocks of limestone in Southeast Asia.
Laos also has a vast system of rivers. All that water pounding on limestone for millions of years has carved out underground waterways that contain some scientific treasures. We're heading to the Konglor Cave to do some exploring.
One thing I've learned about the caves here in Laos is that they're big, really, really big. You could practically fly an airplane through them.
Terry is conducting some important climate research, and these caves are a crucial part of that work.
What we have in this part of the world is what's called a monsoonal type climate with a distinct wet season and dry season. In terms of understanding climate change, we want to look back, say, thousands, maybe 20,000 years ago to understand what the changes of the monsoon have been through that time period.
Knowing how seasons fluctuated in the past can help Laotians understand how long they should expect wet and dry periods to last in the future. Terry and other scientists do this climate research by looking at cave mineral samples found deep inside. We're traveling through the mountain via an underground river that's 4 miles long.
So what's the name of this river?
Hinbun, Limestone River.
That's appropriate. considering we're under millions of tons of it right now.
It's pitch black in here. Our flashlights have to work hard in this massive space.
Basically going upstream right now.
We're looking for stalagmites of just the right age to help with Terry's research. Millions of years worth of water dripping from above during wet periods and then evaporating when it's dry have left behind telltale marks on these structures that are a virtual record of Laos's climate through the ages.
Real shallow spot. And there's a waterfall here.
We hit rapids. These caves are dangerous and unpredictable. This scientific expedition is becoming a white-knuckle adventure. We're navigating some unexpected rapids deep inside the belly of a mountain. But it isn't long before we're through.
Little elbow grease gets you through anything.
We continue through the darkness. We're looking for the best stalagmite for Terry's research.
Let's go have a look.
We need to find a stalagmite that Terry can tag and monitor over the next few months. He wants to find an active one and then see how much water drips on it in the upcoming wet season.
Oh, it's beautiful on this side, Terry.
All right, get an estimate of how tall this column of formations is.
So let's see, to that flowstone over there. In the future, the chosen stalagmite will be removed and put under the microscope for deeper analysis. Scientists can read its cross-section like a history book.
Get a distance to the wall.
Stalagmites are particularly useful for climate research because they contain several different climate records, such as oxygen and carbon isotopes.
Okay. Looks like there might be some standalone stalagmites over this way.
Watch your step. Look at this big mama.
Too big for what we want today.
What about Junior here? A little more manageable size?
I think this would work for us. You know, probably we're looking at somewhere in the tens of thousands of years here. So what I'd like to do is put a piece of flagging tape at the point where the drips would hit. And then we can capture some of the new calcite formation on the top of the piece of flagging tape. So if we come back in, say, 3 or 6 months' time, that'll help us to decide whether this is the one that we want to take to do the detailed work on back in the laboratory.
So we have this great opportunity to try and see what the climate has been like in terms of dry and wet for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years in the past.
That's right.
Very cool.
With our sample found and tagged, it's time to navigate our way out. The work done here will help our global understanding of how climate has been changing over time. Southeast Asia is currently going through unpredictable dry and wet seasons. Information about how those cycles behaved in the past will make the changing of the seasons much more predictable. The limestone karsts and caves of Laos have remained relatively untouched for centuries. For that reason, scientists are only now discovering that on top of these towering limestone formations are pristine ecosystems, little gems of biodiversity. But now, the karsts and the unspoiled world they support are under grave threat.
There's a spot where there's a scar on the side of the limestone, and that's where the local cement company has come here and is actually excavating and mining that limestone to use in their cement production. So at some point, this will end up being completely gone.
Limestone is the key ingredient in cement.
What a lot of people don't realize is that the production of cement is so widespread. It's the #2 resource used in the world just behind water, and it's actually a tremendous source of greenhouse gases. It takes, I've heard, between 7 and 8 tons of carbon dioxide gets pumped into the atmosphere for every ton of cement that is constructed.
Right now, there are 12 cement factories in Laos, but the country wants to increase production to meet the demands of change. In order to modernize, Laos plans to improve infrastructure, such as roads, dams, and housing. Depending on how those plans are carried out, those changes can either be devastating to the environment or have virtually no impact at all. The government will need to take a more active role in the protection and management of its farmland and forests, and resolve to harvest natural resources in a sustainable manner. If they do that, they stand a good chance of being one of the few nations to find a way of modernizing while reducing poverty and fighting climate change at the same time. Laos is well positioned to hit that very rare environmental home run. As global temperatures rise, the polar ice caps are disappearing at an alarming rate. As a result, more and more icebergs are showing up in the warmer waters of Canada. Tracking the growing number of icebergs is crucial because understanding how they move and how they disintegrate is the key to understanding the melting of Arctic ice. I'll see how it's done. From above,
The waves just shooting high up into the air up against the bergs.
from below, and from the very top of an iceberg on the move.
I'm gonna place the beacon.
Melting ice is Earth's warning signal, and icebergs are sounding an alarm bell about our climate's future. I'm in Newfoundland, Canada, on the Atlantic coast, the iceberg capital of the world. Every spring, thousands of icebergs travel from the Arctic down the 1,600-mile stretch of ocean called Iceberg Alley. 1% make it as far south as St. John's.
These icebergs are really amazing. Most of them are formed off of the glaciers on western Greenland. They're born when the glaciers calve into the Davis Strait, and a lot of them end up floating south.
It's a 3-year journey from the Arctic. Circling counterclockwise around Baffin Bay, the icebergs flow into the Labrador Current, which propels them past Newfoundland and Labrador all the way down to the southern tip of the province. They arrive here every year, but their increase in numbers is an ominous indicator of what's happening to the Greenland ice sheet. It's the second largest ice sheet in the world, and it's melting fast, shrinking 47 cubic miles a year. David Barber has been studying the Arctic for 30 years.
Well, there's lots and lots of evidence all pointing in exactly the same direction, that climate change is very much alive and well in the Arctic, and it's really affecting the marine cryosphere in general.
From snow cover to ice sheets, the cryosphere is the term scientists use for frozen water on the surface of the Earth. And right now, it's in a precarious state. The melting is leading to a rise in ocean levels worldwide, a big threat to coastal communities. The warming waters are also affecting global weather patterns. And that's not all.
The melting of the Greenland ice sheet is accelerating the production of icebergs. They're massive, they're very dense, and if you're in a ship that hits one of those, it's going to cause a tremendous amount of damage.
Nowhere else in the world do icebergs intersect with major shipping lanes and fishing zones. Collisions can be deadly. It's up to the International Ice Patrol and U.S. Coast Guard to make sure that doesn't happen.
And last year was a really crazy year, apparently.
Yes, last year was the 6th most severe we've had on record since 1900. We had over 1,500 icebergs drift south.
Today, I get to see their high-tech iceberg monitoring gear in action. This year, almost 900 bergs have been spotted, and we're only halfway through the season.
On the plane here today, we've got the pilot, we've got co-pilot, we've got someone operating the radar, and 2 guys, and all their job is to spot icebergs. Icebergs are an extreme hazard. Obviously, just over 100 years ago, the Titanic, probably the most famous shipwreck of all when it comes to iceberg collisions, went down not too far from here.
There have been several instances over the last couple of years where ships have deflected off of an iceberg. None of them were damaged so badly that they sank.
There have been just over 50 collisions since 1980, causing hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage. Tracking buoys with sensors are deployed from the back of the plane. They're designed to read the currents, which help determine where the icebergs are going and how fast.
I see them crashing and the waves just shooting high up into the air up against the bergs. From up here, looking down, it's really hard to tell just how big these icebergs are.
Icebergs can vary in size, from that of a small car to ones the size of Manhattan. The Ice Patrol is collecting some of the most detailed information for this area. It's entered into a database and shared internationally with climate scientists studying what happens to icebergs in warmer water.
Of course, the Arctic and Antarctic regions are the places on the planet that are most affected by climate change right now. Global temperatures there in the polar regions are about double what they have been. And as temperatures rise, the speed of the glacier will actually increase. And of course, the faster that glacier is moving, the more of that ice is going to end up in the water each year.
Melting Arctic ice disintegrates spectacularly into icebergs. The Petermann Glacier in northern Greenland caught the world's attention in 2010 when satellite images captured a 100 square mile ice island breaking off. Just 2 years later, another one, 50 square miles, also fell away. Scientists are trying to get an idea of what will happen in the future. Brad DeYoung is a professor of oceanography at Memorial University.
What you're always looking for are the big changes, but to determine those, sometimes you have to separate out the kind of the year-to-year variability. The variability one might expect to see decade to decade, but the other is the larger scale kind of climate story.
In order to understand the rate of change, oceanographers are now studying icebergs in more detail, because the way icebergs break up down here mimics the disintegration of the ice shelves in the Arctic.
What we want to do is to make measurements on different kinds of bergs in different situations, and also look at a particular iceberg and ask what's happening to it. And so make repeated measurements of the same iceberg, see how its shape changes,
over time,
how it's melting.
Melting ice shelves are very bad news. Ice shelves are dense floating sheets of ice at the end of a glacier, sometimes up to 3,000 feet thick. They're vital because they act as a huge doorstop, pushing against the glaciers, slowing their flow into the ocean. Without ice shelves, the glaciers would melt more rapidly into the sea, causing a rise in global sea levels. Today, I'm in Conception Bay at the southeast corner of Newfoundland. I'm taking a closer look at icebergs that have made the 1,600-mile journey from Greenland. I want to see how they travel through these waters.
If we've got changes in the environment, such as warmer waters, different currents, different wind patterns, it's going to affect how these icebergs travel through Iceberg Alley. So, the mission is to get out and actually climb onto one of these icebergs and place a satellite tracking beacon on it.
I'll then be able to track it over the next few days.
Cotton! Iceberg, dead ahead! The cold and the beautiful.
Without any warning, these bergs can flip, roll over, or break apart.
Oh!
This'll be a climb unlike any I've tried before.
Holy crap!
I want to get up on the berg and place a beacon on it to track its movement and melt rate.
Oh!
But it's not going to be easy.
Holy crap.
What do you think of that, George? Still want to climb a berg?
Not that one. That's scary. What was once this towering berg is now this pile of thousands of pieces. Get this effervescent sound, all these bubbles, air bubbles coming up out of the ice that's degassing. Wow. With zero warning. Really drives home how dangerous these things can be when you're up close to them.
A bit shaken, we move to one that looks promising to climb.
That is a beautiful, beautiful iceberg. We'll do a circumnavigation. If this iceberg were to roll that way, this piece of ice would come up underneath us. Okay, Rick. Hey.
I'm going to place the tracking beacon as high as possible, as I want to see how long this berg stays intact and how far it goes.
Okay.
Information like this helps scientists understand the breakup of icebergs.
The ice it's a little softer than I was expecting because it's all melting. All right, continuing up. There's water spray coming up, pressurized up over here. Bird feathers up here.
Oh, the angle on this is perfect. It's nice and gentle. What a view. I want to go a little bit further over. I don't dare go any higher up. Too dangerous right here where I'm standing. Here's a good spot right here. All right, just putting an ice screw in right now. Whew. The wind's really picking up here.
I'm securing the beacon and tying it off with rope so it can be retrieved later.
Okay, the rope is in the water. The tracking beacon is retrievable. I'm gonna start working my way back. Perfect. This thing has traveled probably several years down from the Greenland Glacier.
Now, let's see where it goes from here. Tracking icebergs is one way to study climate change, but I want to explore other methods that'll take me into dangerous waters. Icebergs offer valuable clues about the melting Arctic ice that spawned them. And it's not just the increase in their numbers that's concerning scientists.
It's a coupled system. You can't really look at one part of the thing without looking at all the other parts that are interconnected, because they all operate with each other in a very sophisticated harmony.
Scientists are noticing that sea ice, the frozen seawater, is also melting fast and raising the temperature of the water around it.
When you think about the sea ice, we're thinking right now we're going to have a seasonally ice-free Arctic. That stuff that's left at the end of the summer will actually shrink and disappear, you know, somewhere between 2030 and 2050.
Disappear completely?
Disappear completely in summer.
That's scary.
The sea ice keeps the oceans cool because when the surface is covered in ice, it's white, so the energy from the sun is reflected back into space, keeping the Arctic cold. But when the ice melts, the heat from the sun is absorbed into the sea, causing it to warm. And when water heats up, it expands, raising sea levels. But that's not the only problem. Melting sea ice and glaciers also change the ocean's currents. In the oceans, we have what's called the thermohaline circulation, the movement of warm water from the equator northward. All that sea and glacier ice melting and mixing together is disrupting those currents.
The amount of fresh water that are coming from these things is going to change the circulation patterns of the ocean, because the fresh water is very buoyant, and so it tends to come to the surface and the salt water underneath it, which then affects the currents.
Scientists predict that 210,000 square miles of polar ice a decade will melt into the ocean. Changing currents will affect world weather patterns, causing more ferocious storms and extreme snowfalls. The next morning, I head back to Conception Bay. My mission today is to explore the underwater part of these bergs. The base of an iceberg is rarely ever seen, but how it deteriorates in warming water helps scientists understand future melt rates in the Arctic.
We hear the phrase tip of the iceberg all the time, meaning that there's a lot more hidden underneath.
90% of an iceberg is underwater. For the largest bergs, that can be as big as a 5-story building.
If all goes well today, I'm going to get to show you what it's like below the surface. A tricky dive, lots of variables, very cold water. So this should be really interesting.
Dive master John Olivero is an experienced iceberg diver.
There is going to be a little bit of cracking and popping. If you're concerned of any of the noises, just start swimming away. If you see anything coming down at you, away and down.
Away and down. Yeah, it's only dangerous if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Here we go.
There's a couple of icebergs out in the bay right now, so we're going to try and find the best one to go diving on, get in the water, and actually see these things from underneath.
It can be hard for scientists to study these giant moving blocks of ice as they're so unpredictable. We need to find one that looks stable enough to dive near.
George, I like this one because if it breaks, gravity is going to take it that way. So you guys got lots of chance to swim away.
With the berg chosen, we get suited up. Johnny drops a safety buoy, but right away, there's trouble. We reposition further out, and I hit the water. This berg is massive, at least 100 feet deep. It's an incredible sight. The scars of erosion can be seen everywhere, including these cracks and pockmarks all over. Wind, waves, and warm sea temperatures melt away the icebergs, slowly breaking them up. In examining the rate of decline, scientists are also looking at whether or not ocean water changes the way the iceberg melts.
The deep icebergs, if they're melting at the bottom, then there's a plume of fresh water that's coming up. And so we want to look at whether the interaction of that with the ocean water changes the way the iceberg itself melts. So is the iceberg kind of influencing its own environment in a way that changes how the melting takes place?
If scientists can understand these processes, they can make more accurate predictions for the future of the ice cap. It's a real challenge diving in these conditions. Something's gone wrong, and there's much more at stake now than just our research. I'm diving under an iceberg, getting images of its erosion. But I'm having some serious trouble.
Get him out! Get him out! Look out! I'm very close to being seasick. Yeah.
I have to call the dive off. The conditions were really difficult down there.
Despite all the struggles I was having underwater, it was still a sight to behold. Seeing this massive berg underwater. He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day, so. I still got a lot of fight in me, but not so much more today.
After a night of rest, I join a crew on a ship looking for icebergs. But it's not for science. These 10,000-year-old ice blocks happen to contain some of the purest fresh water in the world, and the demand for it is growing.
It is very early in the morning, up at 3:30, meeting up with the iceberg cowboy, Ed Keene.
What we're going to do, he's going to push her around, then you guys just whack it out and he'll go around him, right? Just take our time. We're not in no big hurry. We are, but we got to take our time.
He's an iceberg wrangler who sells iceberg water.
The water is very pure because it's ancient, tens of thousands of years old, and there's a market for it.
The crew heads out to capture a berg.
We lasso it. We take a rope in the speedboat around and tie it off, and then we use a winch to pull us tight to the iceberg.
Nobody owns the icebergs, so it's legal to catch them and break them up before they would naturally melt. But it's a dangerous job.
Yeah, you got to treat them with respect. Some big icebergs with pinnacles and overhangs on them, and just too dangerous.
A big barge like this is really difficult to maneuver, so they used a small boat to give it a bit of a nudge to get it perfectly positioned to get the machinery in there to get the ice. We needed to get the barge away from this shelf that's underwater.
If this iceberg flips right now, it'll take the barge, the motorboat, and all of us along with it. These guys have learned that lesson the hard way.
Last year we had one roll on us. It was pretty bad.
Iceberg ice has been compressed for thousands of years, so it's incredibly dense. Ed positions the cranes so the excavator can take the first bites. Iceberg ice has been locked in ancient glaciers, which formed before the industrial age, making it free of contaminants.
So right now he's dropping the ice directly into those front tanks. And then they use the grinder if they want to send it to the tanks at the back, and shift the weight.
We force water, iceberg water from the tank in, and it flows down into the other tanks.
And how many liters of water will you gather in one season?
We're looking at probably 1.2 million or 3 this year.
guys have been at it for about 4 or 5 hours now, and they have put a serious dent in that chunk of ice.
By late afternoon, they wrap it up and head back to shore with their haul. It's been an adventurous week for me in Iceberg Alley, but before I head home, there's one more place I need to go. I'm going to check on the status of that iceberg I was tracking.
So it's been about 3 days since I put the transmitter on the iceberg up here at Bay de Verde, and an interesting thing has happened. We've had strong winds from the north, which, as you might expect, has pushed that iceberg to the south about halfway into Conception Bay. And last night, it stopped transmitting. The iceberg has probably broken up, and the transmitter is sitting at the bottom of the bay.
It traveled almost 15 miles in 3 days.
It really does go to show how much these things move around out here.
As icebergs continue to flow into these waters off Newfoundland, they're a mixed blessing. They offer scientists a chance to further understand the process of Arctic melting, but they're also an unmistakable warning about the dramatic decline of our ice sheets. Continuing the detailed research and sharing it worldwide will enhance our ability to combat climate change. Keeping the planet cool by just 1 to 2 degrees would help preserve this frozen world.
It's going to cost us a lot more not to do something about this problem than it is for us to do something about this problem, so let's keep our habitat so that it works for us as a species.
Scientists have spoken. Now it's time for governments and individuals to take action. Hostile weather is nothing new to Bangladesh. Seasonal rains and tropical storms hit its low-lying coast and flood its many waterways annually. But as temperatures rise worldwide, our weather is becoming more volatile, and nowhere has that felt harder than Bangladesh. A country being battered so fiercely by the effects of climate change that their existence is under threat right now. Bangladesh has been forced to take extreme measures to survive its battle against climate change. But will it be enough? I've traveled halfway around the world, this time to Bangladesh. I'm on the southern tip of Bola Island, where the land ends and the Bay of Bengal begins. And of course, I'm traveling in the monsoon, the heaviest part of the rainy season.
The sky has opened up, and it is coming down in buckets.
About 80% of Bangladesh's yearly rainfall occurs during monsoon season, which lasts from June to October. By the end, almost 1/3 of the country is underwater. And now, climate change is making the rains more unpredictable and intense.
Raining pretty hard, isn't it? Yeah, it's heavy.
I'm joined by translator and guide Riazul Hook.
I'm totally ready to cope with the rain.
Bangladesh receives 80 inches of rain per year, making it one of the wettest places on Earth.
Bangladesh is a country that has been shaped by water. The entire country is basically a river delta.
It's crisscrossed by 700 rivers and innumerable streams and tributaries. Meltwaters from the mountain ranges in the north flow into the lowlands below, where they reach the largest bay in the world, the Bay of Bengal. 80% of the country is low-lying, with much of the coastal region just over 3 feet above sea level. The land is made up of silt, a soft mixture of sand and sediment, making it prone to flooding and erosion.
Whoa, very difficult to walk in. This fine silt has been deposited here. Some of it local, some of it will have even come all the way from the glaciated areas of the Himalayas, thousands of miles to the north.
As a result, the land here is very fertile, but also very fragile. As climate change takes hold, more water is flowing down from the mountaintops. Riverbanks are swelling, making tides more dangerous, all of which are hitting the shores of Bangladesh hard.
We're losing a lot of the land to the water. Bangladesh is a country that might very well be disappearing right in front of our eyes.
The effects of erosion can be seen everywhere.
But you can see almost a sharp knife edge where the riverbank has just been slowly carved away. Every high tide, a little more goes out. Every storm, a little more goes out. It's eroded back right to the edge of the road.
চাচা আপনার নাম কি চাচা মোহাম্মদ আকবর আলী সানা
Muhammad. His name is Muhammad Akbar Ali Sana. He has been living here for 19 years.
19 years.
When he settled here first time, his house was 20 feet from here.
That's where the house used to be.
Yeah, 20 feet that way.
And it just keeps having to move it back?
Yeah, it's moving back towards the road.
A large population and lack of space means thousands of people are forced to live in these exposed places. Alamgir Hussain is a climate change specialist from the UN Bangladesh Development Program.
We have 19 coastal districts, and roughly 60 million people lives here. A recent study shows that, if the sea level rises by 80 centimeters, and if there is no action, then at least Bangladesh will lose around 17% of its landmass. If I only consider the coastal part of Bangladesh, then roughly around 80% of the coastal arable land will be gone.
With seas predicted to rise between 30 to 80 inches by the end of the century, it's a very real threat. Already, the sea is encroaching, and you can see how the locals are desperately trying to hold back the water.
Is they put up these wooden protection barriers along the riverbank, and it's basically a last-ditch, desperate attempt to keep what remaining land they have from falling into the river. It seems to be working for now, but I don't think it's going to hold for too many more years.
As sea levels continue to rise, protecting the coast and its communities is key to this country's survival. And nowhere is this more important than the Sundarbans region, which has the largest mangrove forest in the world. I'm heading west to see Bangladesh's best natural protection against sea level rise and storm surges. The Sundarbans covers 4,000 square miles. 60% is in Bangladesh and 40% in India. It's home to over 500 species of animals, including the endangered Bengal tiger.
All morning I've been seeing different fishermen set up with their boats in the middle of the river.
The area is rich in natural resources like fish, providing a livelihood for the 3 million people who live in the surrounding communities. We head deep into the jungle.
We've taken the boat out early, 5:30 this morning, gone upstream a bit, and now we're just letting the current take us downstream very quietly. There's this strange glowing orb in the sky that I haven't seen in many, many days. The sun has actually decided to make an appearance.
This vast forest provides an important natural protection to the coast of Bangladesh. Mangrove trees can grow in salt water and low oxygen soil. Their dense root system helps stabilize the coastline and reduces erosion and damage from waves and storms. But now, increased erosion throughout the region is causing unsustainable amounts of sediment and silt to enter the waterways that flow through the forest. And the protective mangrove trees are suffocating. Dr. Khan tells me why.
These creeks are like blood vessels. And the problem is because of the continuous siltation, these creeks are silted out. And once the creeks are silted, all the mangrove roots are blocked. And these are the breathing organs for mangrove plants. Roots are blocked, they cannot breathe, so they die.
200 years ago, the Sundarbans measured about 6,400 square miles. Now, it's down to a third of its original size. Of course, this loss of habitat is having a big impact on the animals that live here. The tiger population has drastically shrunk by 40% in only 10 years.
So there are actually a lot fewer tigers than was originally thought. That's not a very big population, between 100 and 200 individuals.
No, it's not a big population. If the tiger is gone, there will be too many deer, and they will graze all the seedlings. That's why there will be no regeneration. That will be a catastrophic event. That will be from the apex to the bottom.
Saving the mangrove forest and the creatures that live in it is essential because without it, a huge chunk of the Bangladesh coast will be rapidly swallowed by the sea. Hundreds of animal species won't survive, and millions of people will be displaced. But erosion and rising sea levels are not the only climate-related issue threatening Bangladesh. The monster cyclones that blow through every year bring a whole other level of destruction. Bangladesh is a country battered by fierce weather that sweeps in across the Bay of Bengal. Cyclone season lasts from August to November, bringing massive storms. But now, as climate change takes hold, they're getting more fierce and unpredictable.
Cyclones are what we would call hurricanes. The people that live here are about as vulnerable to these massive cyclones as anyone in the world. It's hard to imagine a population of people more exposed to the elements.
Cyclones are a product of heat and moisture. They form in the warm Indian Ocean just before and after monsoon season. As climate change warms the sea, cyclones and tropical storms get worse. The damage from past storms can be seen everywhere as I travel to meet those affected by the extreme weather here.
And the spot I'm visiting today is Charfaisong Orphanage.
70 boys make this place their home. Shirajul Islam is the director of the orphanage.
What were the circumstances that caused the orphanage to be formed in the first place?
The orphanage is established after cyclone 1970. More than 300,000 people died in this area.
The 1970 Ebola cyclone was the deadliest tropical storm in history, with a storm surge of up to 30 feet. And since then, globally, the number of cyclones has tripled. Here in Bangladesh, hundreds of people are killed each year by storms.
Most of the students have lost their father in the Bay of Bengal.
So most of their fathers were fishermen?
Yeah, fishermen.
The country has been hit by 10 cyclones in 16 years. The last one was in 2007, when Cyclone Sidir tore through the south, devastating communities. It also coincided with some of the worst monsoon flooding the country had seen.
What would you do with the orphans, with the boys, if a cyclone was coming 2 days from now?
We have one building. Our boys can take shelter in there.
There are cyclone shelters all over the country now, and they've drastically reduced deaths from storms. In spite of the hardship they've faced, the future for these kids is optimistic.
Our boys are doing good results, so they are doing hard work. And our boys are is loving the orphanage. They can play.
So they have a good place to stay, they make friends, they get educated to better themselves, that they can now get good jobs. Every year, the seasons bring tremendous change to the landscape here. And as we move forward, those changes are going to become more and more drastic as climate change continues to creep on and have its effect here in Bangladesh.
One place where these changes are incredibly apparent is the village of Kourounis, where a project is underway to save homes and livelihoods from the damage caused by climate change. Here, storm surges regularly wash away houses, flood farmlands, and render crops useless because of saltwater intrusion.
When salinity intrudes, the agricultural production of Bangladesh significantly will impact. One other major challenge associated with salinity intrusion is right now with availability of fresh water and fresh water for drinking. Bangladesh is called a land of rivers. Water is everywhere, but right now in Bangladesh, still around 20 million people in the coastal belt is suffering from crisis of drinking water.
Alamgir takes me around the village to see what they're doing about it.
So is this the embankment here?
Yeah, this is the embankment here. It's around 14 kilometers long. The sea is on that side.
In order to protect themselves, a thick embankment made from mud has been built all around the community with the help of the UN.
So I could follow this embankment now all the way around the perimeter of the island for 14 kilometers?
All these 14 kilometers you can, yes.
Impressive.
Just 2 years back, nothing was here.
It provides a wall of protection from saltwater intrusion and storm surges 10 feet high. Ponds have been dug to collect the rainwater during the monsoon.
Yeah. So this acts as a freshwater reserve. This water can be, purified through, there are very simple techniques.
This land normally would not have been very useful, but now there are fish in the pond and there's vegetable gardens all the way ringing around.
There are 10 similar projects across the south. But for many along the coast, the flooding can't be stopped and they're forced to flee. Thousands of displaced Bangladeshis head to Dhaka every year, and the mass influx is creating an entirely new crisis. Dhaka, the crowded capital of Bangladesh, where according to the NGO Coastal Watch, Every hour, another 11 Bangladeshis arrive after losing their homes to rising seas. It's a global problem. Experts predict that by 2050, 250 million people worldwide will be forced to move due to the effects of climate change. 10% will be in Bangladesh.
There are some studies going on really to find out climate-induced migration. They can't really afford to have a sustainable livelihood, so they're moving out.
The population of Dhaka is exploding. There are 14 million people crowded into 180 square miles, making it one of the most densely populated cities in the world. The city's infrastructure can't keep up. We hail a rickshaw to go and see how the people hardest hit by climate change live. With so many people in Dhaka, jobs are scarce, and many earn just $2 a day pulling rickshaws.
For the low-income people, they can pull the rickshaw and they can make some money.
Many of them live in the poor neighborhoods, like the one I'm being taken to.
This part of Dhaka is known as the Bola slum, and it's named after the island of Bola, where most of these people who live here have relocated from.
It was originally built for people left homeless by the devastating 1970 cyclone, but now it also houses people who have simply lost their land from the encroaching sea.
This place is totally a labyrinth.
It's the definition of hardship. There's only one electricity supply and very little clean running water. This is what life is like for 3 million people living in Dhaka.
It's kind of heartbreaking to see because so many families live in just such terrible, poor conditions here. A lot of these people don't have a lot of choice but to come to places like this.
Even though Dhaka isn't on the coast, it's surrounded by water and extremely vulnerable to the effects of monsoon rains. And the more that falls, the harder life becomes. I find my way to the home of the Kashim family, who fled Bola 16 years ago. Now, they live next to the city's drainage canal, which regularly overflows in the rain.
This is the wall of Dhaka water sanitary system.
Okay.
Here, there's the pumping system, end of this canal. In Khaleshesi, they have the pumping system. So this area almost go underwater every year.
Here or on the other side of the wall?
Other side, and then come inside. Water level goes up to that mark. You see the dirt?
Wow.
They were flooded, and this area was submerged around for 11 days maximum, once.
Even in here, people can't escape the ravages of climate change. If monsoon rains become as intense as predicted, Dhaka won't be a safe refuge for long. I leave, and as I head to the port of Dhaka, my journey is slowed down, not by the weather, but by celebration. Bangladesh has the 4th largest Muslim population in the world and is also the 3rd largest Hindu state. Monsoon season coincides with important festivals for both faiths.
It's the end of Ramadan here, and you can hear the prayer call in the background. This city is bustling right now.
Eid Mubarak! Eid Mubarak!
And in the Hindu neighborhood, they're celebrating the Rath Yatra festival.
It is one of the biggest festivals in the Hindu calendar.
And boy, do the Bangladeshis know how to celebrate.
These thousands of people, we've all come together, and we're pulling the chariot through the streets.
The festival is an ode to Jagannath, or Juggernaut, which means unstoppable force. Not unlike the monsoon.
It looks like the Juggernaut, the unstoppable force, is about to meet the other unstoppable force, the monsoon.
But the revelers don't let that stop them.
Just trying to hold up. Hooked on a wire. One of the wires in the truck. I hope that's not high voltage.
Once unhooked, the chariot temple is pulled to its final destination.
This is as far as the chariot is going to come. It's going to sit here for a week.
The Jagannath statues are carried through the crowd of devotees to the local temple.
That was a world-class, grade A sensory overload. It's an honor to have been here. Just loved it. And we got some monsoon rain.
As the heavens open, it's clear to me that the Bangladeshi people are used to persevering in the face of extreme weather. With that in mind, I head north.
Resilience and adaptability are two terms that I would definitely use to describe the people that live here.
I'm discovering as the flooding here gets worse, Bangladeshis are finding increasingly more innovative ways of adapting. I've traveled to the north, to Pabna, to visit an inspirational education program.
So what do you do if you live in a remote, rural part of the country that floods regularly? You've got kids, you need to send them to school. Well, you improvise and innovate.
Here, they've come up with the idea of floating schools. In 1998, the first floating school was founded to help the children who were missing out on vital education as schools were frequently flooded. I meet the program's manager, Suprakesh Paul.
শিশুরা স্বনির্ভর সংস্থা চিন্তা করলো যদি স্কুলটাই ছাত্রদের বাড়ির দোরগোড়ায় পৌঁছাতে পারে।
They started with one boat, but now have a fleet of 39. There are 22 school boats, 10 library boats, and 7 adult education centers.
Here in the library boat, we've got all kinds of books for all different ages. We've even got a couple of computers up the front run by solar power, so it can be operating pretty much anywhere. It's a pretty cool setup.
70,000 kids have benefited from this project. But it's not just classrooms that are floating. Many farms have also been erected above the water.
We've got a garden with vegetables. We've got ducks that they keep here for, of course, their eggs and for meat.
Being self-sufficient is vital for survival.
In each of these ponds, there's fish that they're growing.
এভাবে পুরো পরিবারকে আমরা আমাদের প্রোগ্রামের আওতায় আনার চেষ্টা করছি এবং এখান থেকে অনেকে যা ট্রেনিং পাচ্ছে ট্রেনিং পেয়ে অনেক।
What's clear to me is that the people of Bangladesh have a remarkable character when confronted by extreme weather.
From building schools out on the water to finding new ways to grow crops in an ever-increasing environment of unpredictability.
As our climate continues to change and the weather becomes more severe, Bangladesh is a country to watch. It's facing the most extreme repercussions of climate change, from severe flooding and erosion to mass displacement. Things we could see across the globe if immediate action is not taken to combat climate change. The polar bear, the world's largest land predator, is under threat. As the Arctic warms, the icy habitat of the bear is melting faster, leaving them hungry and vulnerable. Their population is dwindling as they struggle to survive the longer summers. And now, starving bears are coming into towns searching for food. I've come to their world to find out how they're coping in a fast-changing climate. Can they survive and adapt, or will the mighty polar bear become a climate casualty? I'm heading to Canada's far north, to the timberline, where trees give way to Arctic tundra and the view of the northern lights is at its most spectacular. I'm landing in Churchill, Manitoba, the polar bear capital of the world. It's summertime here, and Arctic fox and snow geese can be seen in the rugged wilderness that's all around. Right off the coast, hundreds of beluga whales are gathering to feed and give birth to their young.
I'm surrounded by beluga whales here. Wow, very, very close to the kayak. Belugas and polar bears share the same habitat. This is Hudson Bay, and for half the year, it's the ice-covered hunting ground of the polar bear. The polar bear, of course, is the Ursus maritimus, the marine bear, and they're very comfortable in the water.
But this time of year, they're pretty much landbound, wandering the coastline in a state of semi-hibernation. They forage for what little food they can find while they wait for Hudson Bay to freeze over in the winter. Then they can return to their preferred habitat, the sea ice, and start hunting for seals again. But temperatures are rising worldwide, so their habitat is changing, which puts their future at risk.
The Arctic regions are warming at twice the rate of the global average. Some scientists say that we could be losing 4% of our sea ice every 10 years. That could have a devastating effect on the polar bear populations.
There are an estimated 25,000 polar bears in the world, and they depend on sea ice for survival.
They're the most majestic animal in the Arctic, and they've evolved over a long period of time from grizzly bears to take advantage of the special and unique habitat of sea ice.
It's a rich hunting ground for the bears.
They almost exclusively hunt ring seals on sea ice in the winter. That's their primary source of energy. And so the sea ice becomes a very important part of the habitat of the polar bear.
But now, with warmer air temperatures, the ice has been thawing earlier and freezing later in the waters around Hudson Bay. Less ice for less time means the bears are trapped on land for longer without access to the high-fat food they need. I want to find out more about how bears survive during these increasingly long summer months, so I'm joining up with Matthias Breiter, a biologist and expert in polar bear behavior. We've come 250 miles south to a favorite resting spot for southern polar bears. Matthias has been working with the polar bears here for 20 years and will try to get me as close as is safely possible to observe the bears without stressing them.
All right, for our bear excursions, we've got this crazy machine. 8-wheel drive, will go anywhere, over anything. You'll notice there is no sides. There's no protection, really.
A bear standing up is 10, 11 feet. He's somewhere up there.
Yeah.
Perfect chewing height.
Perfect chewing height.
We head out. The bears that are in this area are part of the western Hudson Bay population, made up of about 1,000 bears. Their habitat covers around 1,000 square miles. It's not long before a bear comes into view.
We've spotted a bear. It's over by the river. It's moving this way, so we're going to go out ahead of the bear, turn off the vehicles, get out on the ground, and hopefully the bear will come to us.
So how far will they go inland?
Juvenile males, 300 kilometers easily. Males, when they reach sexual maturity, they look for new places. When you're young, you test a lot of things, and mostly you screw up. But occasionally you get lucky.
That sounds like my teenage years.
Now, one of your specialties is getting up close to bears in the wild on foot. Some people think you're crazy. They are the largest land carnivore on Earth.
The thing is that people generally are interpreting curiosity as aggression. And then if you behave wrong, you can actually turn a purely curious approach into a very dangerous encounter.
With the bear in sight, we make our way towards it on foot.
It's on the move.
We need to play it safe for our sake, but also, we don't want to disturb the bear.
Matthias, do you think it's male or female?
I think it's a male, probably 800-pound bear.
As well as observing them, I want to see what the bears are feeding on during these extended warmer months to get a sense of how the loss of sea ice is affecting their health.
Polar bears spend about 4 months living on land. So while they're here, we want to see what types of food they're ingesting. And the best way is to A, observe them eating, but B, examine their scat. And we can actually see what kind of nutrients they're getting, what food they're eating.
I'll be taking my samples to the lab at the Winnipeg Zoo for further analysis.
As we collect more and more scat, we'll have a better sense what bears have been eating. So what are they eating in the summer? There's been lots of talk about kind of switching to alternative and terrestrial food sources. So how big a role does that play? What's going into those scats? What's supporting those different bears?
We know they eat grass in the summer, but with the warm months getting longer and longer, will this diet be enough for them to survive on? Gathering samples will help us find out.
Right now, the bear is just curious, sitting on the sand.
Now he's gonna poop.
It's pooping. Fresh bear poop, yes. Of course, we have to get to it. Doesn't seem to be too interested in us, so we're gonna try and get up close to where we saw it drop that scat, so.
Isn't that nice poop there?
And the bear decided to stop. The bear is quite close, but as long as we don't do anything to alarm him, he should be okay. Just in case, I've got my bear banger here. Shoots off a flare. Hopefully, won't need it.
This bear is too close for us to safely collect the sample right now, and it looks like it's got no plans on leaving anytime soon.
There's no reason to run off. Running off takes a lot of energy. You don't want to stress them. They don't have energy to waste at this time of the year.
We decide to wait it out.
So the whole life of a polar bear is totally retention of energy.
What's the lean times for them right now?
They're very lean time.
They need to conserve their energy because, for the most part, they're living off their own fat reserves stored up from last season's hunt.
Should I be worried that I have a seal blubber energy bar in my pocket right now?
Well, I'm 100% convinced you have anything, seal blubber, anything, this bear would be run over here.
It's like ringing the dinner bell.
As their fat reserves run low, the question now becomes, can the Hudson Bay polar bear adapt to survive? These scat samples will provide invaluable information, but this bear isn't making it easy.
He's just hanging out. One thing I can do is mark this location on my GPS, and we could always come back and grab the sample. Sometimes we have limited options. So I'll just give this point a name, location. Okay, bear poop 01.
We move on to look for more bears. We spot two near the vehicles.
They both look very big, healthy.
They look healthy.
It's early in the season, so they would have just come off the ice not that long ago, so they probably still have a belly full of...
They have probably been feeding reasonably well until about a month ago. Now they lose 2 pounds a day in weight. We can try to get ahead, but if he keeps on following her, they'll just...
Yeah, I think they're gone.
We go east.
Slow down, slow down.
Look at those claw marks. That's so big.
They cannot retract their claws.
No, they cannot.
They're permanent. They're always out. Very cool. Let's follow them.
All right.
We follow the tracks and are led to a big male polar bear.
Oh, here he goes.
There he gets
He's
up.
getting up.
But this encounter soon gets a little too close for comfort.
Okay.
Hey, Doug.
I'm in northern Canada, in polar bear country. I need to collect scat samples to gauge the impact of climate change on the bear's diet. But if I disturb this one, I could be in trouble.
Matthias, do you think it's male or female?
A large male in its prime.
We watch the bear as it rests for more than an hour.
He seems a little more active now than he was a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
That's 3 yawns now.
Can be slightly nervous yawn. That can mean that he is going to get up and approach us a bit.
So what do we do if he does get up and start approaching us?
We'll do a few steps towards him. If we back up, he'll just come faster.
Right. Polar bears can run up to about 40 kilometers per hour, but only in short bursts. So if that bear really wanted to run, it could be here in the blink of an eye.
I want him to relax back down. And there he gets up.
He's getting up.
This 900-pound bear is a ferocious predator. It's nerve-wracking being this close.
A little bit of displacement behavior.
So he's just chewing on the grass right now.
It's like if there's something you want to do, but you don't really dare. And so you jump to another behavior.
He was just sort of thinking about us.
He's hesitating. You don't want to create fear. Fear can result in aggression.
Now he's lying back down. So if I were to suddenly start running away from him,
in all likelihood, he'll run after you.
You think so, huh?
95%.
Really? Oh, here he goes.
Okay. If he gets off the grass, we have to make a step towards him.
Walking towards a polar bear goes against every instinct.
Come on. No.
If we're wrong, we could be killed.
He'll try to come again.
So just look big.
Yeah, when he tries to hook in, I make a little step towards him. You kind of want to keep the pressure a little bit on him. Now he tries to hook again a little bit. I put a little pressure on him.
That's amazing.
You want to be dominant. Any kind of movement towards another bear is always dominance behavior. I'm steering him away. And now he's made up his mind.
He's gone.
He's gone, without creating stress.
My heart was racing. You've done this
hundreds of times before, but I've never actively moved towards a polar bear that is coming towards me.
And the male one.
A big male, yeah.
I mean, if you understand a little bit how bears interact with other bears, they're reasonably predictable. People just do not read their language right.
With that crisis averted, we go back to collect the first scat sample. It's not just the bears of Hudson Bay that are seeing deteriorating ice conditions. It's a problem all over the Arctic. The minimum sea ice recorded in 2015 was 1.7 million square miles, about 40% less than the previous 30-year average.
The global temperature that we've seen of the planet, the rise of global temperature, is about 0.7 degrees Celsius. In the Arctic, it's about 2.5 to 3 times that. And the reason for that is when you cover that surface with this white sea ice, you're reflecting all that energy from the sun back to space, so it keeps it cool. Open it up, that energy goes into the surface of the ocean and it warms things up. That's a big change.
The loss of sea ice would cause a major break in the chain of life in the Arctic. Sea ice is an integral part of the Arctic food web, providing habitat for microorganisms like ice algae and zooplankton. Algae attaches to the bottom of the ice and becomes food for fish and marine mammals. Those fish sustain seals, and seals sustain polar bears. Polar bears are at the top of the food chain, but scientists are predicting that the Hudson Bay population could disappear by 2050. For now, I have the opportunity to observe them up close.
It's the one spot in the world where you can see polar bears in the wild, not on the ice, so it's a really unique spot.
The bear we tracked this morning moves on, so we can safely collect the sample.
Here's the scat.
Was able to get the sample and out of there perfectly safely without disturbing the bear, really. Specimen bag.
Until we get it to the zoo lab.
Perfect. What we find in these samples could provide vital clues to help determine the bear's chance of survival. But getting this close to the bears is dangerous work.
So she's coming right towards us.
The polar bear has been broken down into 19 different regions that scientists recognize. And of those 19, 10 of them are here in Canada. So it's an excellent place to study polar bears and how climate change is affecting their population.
And it's the bears here in western Hudson Bay that are the most at risk of extinction. Their southerly location means they're bearing the brunt of the effects of climate change. Their numbers have declined by 22% since the early 1980s.
Over the last 30 years, the amount of time that open water season is in Hudson Bay is now about 4 weeks longer than it used to be. And there was some very dramatic observations of bears in very critical condition because they've had to fast for so long. They're not getting enough energy, and so that creates problems with mortality.
In a few weeks' time, temperatures will drop and the ice will start to form on the bay. Hundreds of hungry bears will converge along the shores close to the town of Churchill in anticipation of the coming ice. And for Churchill's Polar Bear Alert program, that's a problem.
So the longer it takes for the ice to form on the bay, the busier we are. Oftentimes you'll drive along this road and there will be a bear just right there.
Brett Willock is taking me on one of his bear patrols. He's covering a 3-mile perimeter around Churchill, making sure hungry bears don't make it into town.
The one last night, it was about 5:30 in the morning where our staff was called and they chased it away.
Hundreds of bears gather on the coast, but it's usually the more desperate bears and juveniles that come into town to scavenge for food, bringing them dangerously close to people.
When was the last time that someone was actually attacked by a bear and injured?
2 years ago.
It can be a terrifying experience. Locals carry arms and avoid walking alone at night. In the most recent attack, 2 people were severely injured by a polar bear in the early hours of the morning.
And when you're built right on the coast of the Hudson Bay, it happened.
Most bears are coaxed away before they make it into town, but some become problem bears, and Brett and his team have to trap and relocate them. He shows me one of his traps.
Right now, we're only using the one.
And how many bears do you trap per year, approximately?
It depends on how many bears are around.
Yeah.
It could be 30 bears, it could be 70 bears.
Trapped bears are taken to the holding facility, weighed, tagged, and then relocated. Many are malnourished. Locating high-energy food is key to the survival of the polar bear. The lack of sea ice is forcing some bears to migrate north to colder regions with better ice conditions. Recent DNA evidence found genes of the southern bear in the high Arctic.
We can probably expect to see either loss or much lower numbers of polar bears in places like Manitoba, and then maybe higher densities of polar bears in Grise Fjord or places that are really in the high Arctic.
But if polar bears can find new food sources, there may be hope for the population here. We head back out along the coast to see more bears and collect more samples. Not far down the beach, we encounter a sow and her cub.
The mother and cub keep wandering sort of west along the coastline.
Warmer weather for Hudson Bay has another catastrophic impact on females and their cubs. Increased spring rains can collapse their maternity dens, reproduction rates are down, and cub mortality is up for the Hudson Bay bears.
Well, you can see the sniffing.
Yeah.
Now she's coming right into the scent, coming right towards us. She'll never come all the way up.
No.
Their priority is to keep the cub safe. Bears are opportunists, so curiosity is exceedingly important when finding new food sources. So that is just their nature. They're curious. Always keep a look around. You never know. There could be a bear lying anywhere in the bushes and catching our scent.
And you'd never see it until, you know.
It's as far as she wanted to come.
While we observe them walking the tide line, we get lucky.
They're both pooping? Both of them pooped simultaneously. It was like a synchronized pooping.
We wait till it's safe to go in and get the sample.
Really fresh. I'll just mark this. Awesome.
On our way back, we see a polar bear finishing off what looks like the remains of a snow goose. We know that a handful of polar bears have been spotted hunting and catching caribou and eating berries as black bears do. But are they making a real transition to more land-based foods, or are these just opportunistic meals? Our next step will provide the answers. We're heading to Winnipeg to have the scat analyzed and find out if the Hudson Bay polar bears can be adapting to a swiftly warming climate. With scat samples in hand, we arrive at the lab at the zoo in Winnipeg to find out if the Hudson Bay polar bear population has a future.
Let's take a look at this.
We got a bunch.
We pull out all the samples for Dr. Peterson and log them.
Female.
We'll just have to make sure that we switch gloves between samples, just in case we're going to use these for genetic analysis.
He loads the first sample into the microscope.
There's been lots of discussion about summer food sources, bird species and stuff, so I'm always curious to see if something like that shows up
Goose
as well.
eggs.
Yeah.
He analyzes and compares each sample.
Yeah, pretty consistent. I don't know. It looks much the same as the other ones.
The grass, I don't see anything else in there. It's salad, which is totally not what you think of when you think of a bear.
Every sample we analyzed was composed of a grass called sedges. The grass gives them liquid, but no nutrients. The longer they eat grass, the more their body condition deteriorates.
So the idea that polar bears will be able to adapt to life on land without sea ice is really not practical.
No, but we're not going to see all the polar bears shift over to grazing and these other food sources in a short time period. Ultimately, polar bears need to be out on the ice getting seals, and if they're not getting to it or they're getting to it for fewer weeks or fewer months, it's going to have big, population level impact.
Without the ability to adapt to new food, the future for many polar bears is looking bleak. At the current rate of climate change, even the most northerly sea ice will melt completely in the summer, and the polar bears will have nowhere left to go. For the first time, an animal at the very top of the food chain could be wiped out by climate change. It's up to everyone, individuals, companies, and countries, to continue to reduce the causes of climate change and save the polar bear.